Good evening. Boy, we got a roundtable discussion for you, and we got something very illuminating. Richard Gage, formerly of Architects and Engineers, actually conducted the biggest interview of his life, even bigger than C-SPAN. He was interviewed by Patrick Ben-David of Valuetainment, and this guy garners the attention of millions of people. And in this video, it was an hour and 44 minutes long. I cut it a little bit. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long. And we're going to respond, help fill in the blanks about some of the questions that Gage was asked, and he gave pretty much vague answers too. And what I want to do is basically come right out and say, this is not a hit piece of Richard Gage. I'm not even talking about Richard Gage. I'm actually going to talk about the points raised in this discussion. And why are we doing this? For one reason. One, this is a huge audience. And to interview Richard Gage about some of the anomalies of 9/11 and come out really valuing just like the basic stuff isn't enough, because we're at this point now in time after 21 years that we could talk about intricate details about anomalies which were not covered by the legacy media or the government's two congressional inquiries, but also forgotten because they've been blanketed by these fringe conspiracies that basically just blanket the anomalies altogether from the public eye. So what we want to do, and I want to introduce everybody first, geopolitical researcher, analyst, and now an author of written documents and articles, Darren Harvey. Darren, what's up, pal?
Hey, Adam, thanks for having me tonight.
Yeah, man, your voice is going to be big here. Geopolitical analyst, researcher. You just opened up your YouTube just like Darren did. Sean Russell, what's up, pal?
Hello, Adam. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
And the former director of We Are Change LA. I've interviewed you twice for my podcast, Ed Brotherton. What's up, buddy?
What's up? Good to see you again, man.
Yeah. I don't want to waste too much time. I did want to make this short, and basically, when I say short, less than 3 hours. So, but anyway, no, this is, I want to be straight and honest in this video. I got a bunch of stuff that I want to show you too about stuff that Gage basically couldn't answer, which is not his fault. Basically, there's some things that he just doesn't study. He comes right out and admits it, but also too, the stuff that he did say, which is more importantly, which basically were incorrect. So without further ado, I'm going to share the screen and play the video. And what I want to do is basically make you guys a little bit bigger so that people could see your faces and stuff, and put you in the corner over here. All right. Anytime you want me to pause the video, so you want to say something, let me know. And again, the message we're sending, the people that we're reaching, isn't necessarily Richard Gage, but to the people that follow him. And to the people that are watching Valuetainment that don't know really much about the anomalies of 9/11, as Patrick basically said that, you know, I'm just scratching the surface. So this is actually going to be a benefit to those of the public side about looking at 9/11, and also to the side that Richard Gage presents. So this is not a hit piece to you. This is more of an educational piece, because we're not coming after Gage. We're not coming after his followers. We're not going to criticize Patrick Ben-David, but we're actually going to try and set the record straight. And that's all I wanted to say. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
Just so everybody knows, you know, we have a lot of different things we're going to go through. For some of you guys, the topic of 9/11, we have one of our guys here, Rob, who I was just saying right before we got started, he has never worn a suit since he's been working with me. Never. I'm convinced he never wore a suit and a tie on his wedding day. Okay?
His whole life.
Yeah, I've never seen him in a suit and a tie. He's wearing a brand new suit and a tie just for you, because he follows this so closely. I mean, it was to the point where I said, listen, why don't you conduct the interview instead of myself? But we got a lot of things, different things that we'll go through. So we appreciate you for coming on. Before we get started, do you mind taking a quick moment and just kind of giving a little bit more about your background? You know, what gives you the moral authority and the credibility to be able to make the claims that you claim on what happened here? And then we'll go into some more questions.
I don't know about the moral authority, but certainly I'm a 30-year architect. I'm a member of the American Institute of Architects. I have worked on many fireproof steel frame, not high-rise, but various buildings, institutions, etc. So I've worked hard, very hard to prepare myself for what came in 2000. When I heard on the radio Ray Griffin being interviewed on the radio station, Bonnie Faulkner's Guns and Butter, KPFA, I was shocked. I had never heard any alternative theory as to how these towers came down. Not one. I didn't know that there was a third skyscraper that collapsed on 9/11. In fact, I found out that nobody I knew about this third worst structural failure in modern history after the Twin Towers. So that was a shock to me. So I had to hear David Ray Griffin come the next night, and he was 600 people packed into the Grand Lake Theater in Oakland. So I couldn't even get in. I had to go home and watch on the live stream. Then I saw this building coming down, which we'll talk about, Building 7. I saw the evidence for the Twin Towers, explosive evidence all over the place. And I was just in shock. I had to put together, almost took it to the firm that I worked for, 15 architects. They thought I was nuts, actually, until I bribed them. I bought them pizza in the conversation. And then all of them raised their hands. Oh my God, you're right. These are controlled demolitions. That was my first. Now we have 3,500 over at AE 9/11 Truth, where indeed I did bring that firm, that organization up for the last 17 years. And now I'm independent with Richard Gage 911.org.
You're no longer with that organization.
Correct.
And what happened?
Spike Lee got involved. He had heard that I was talking about the new false flag operation going around in the last 2 years, which is a great concern to me personally. And I think all people need to know about both of these planned events. So it's real important. So he was concerned about some comments that I had made, and he apparently had swallowed the official narrative of this pandemic hook, line, and sinker.
Okay, see, I just want to stop right there. That's a problem because he's already asserting that, COVID-19 was a bioweapon that was created to release to sicken the world and destroy small businesses. This is something that I think he should have stood away from. I remember putting out one video about COVID-19, and it was actually about the passports. And it was actually a pro and con video. I got a strike for medical misinformation. I never did it again, right? Learned my lesson, I hate restrictions too, okay? I don't believe in restrictions, but Richard Gage was asked repeatedly not to do this, and he did it anyway. There was also, what he doesn't say here, that there was actually a recording of him made by somebody that was talking about COVID-19 being like a bioweapon released into the world and stuff like that. That's what got him in trouble. And Architects and Engineers was planning to do something with Spike Lee regarding World Trade Center 7, 1 and 2. And when that got cut, because Spike Lee heard about what happened with Richard Gage, because of the audio, Architects and Engineers held a meeting with the board of directors, and they all agreed to kick out Richard Gage to save the company, even though he was told repeatedly not to talk about COVID-19, and he refused. And
Well,
thus he made his own group called 9/11 Unleashed.
He continued to talk COVID because he got banned off of YouTube because
Yes,
he
right.
he got numerous strikes talking about that. He continued to do it, and of course he got banned. So.
Yeah.
And was concerned. So he pulled the half-hour segment from his September 11th mini-series, 9/11 and Epicenters. So later we learned on a radio interview or newspaper interview.
You know what? Just a short thing. I didn't want to stop. You know what? When Spike Lee did that, the same people that wanted him to talk about 9/11 turned on him like that when he did that, just real quick. And that just goes to show, this mindset that's, I don't know.
That he
shouldn't have done it.
Didn't have a choice. That it wasn't probably my comments that were the cause of pressure from HBO and other and other authorities that he bowed to, apparently.
And that's how you were removed from it.
This became quite a concern of our PR consultant, who convinced our board that this was a PR crisis and the CEO had to go. So they unwittingly went along with that recommendation, and there was quite a vigorous discussion on our board. And
Now you were not a co-founder, you were a founder.
I am the founder.
And so they removed the founder and this. So forget CEO.
Yeah.
They removed the founder.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange to do that, Tom, to remove the founder from a project like
Well,
this.
that happened to Steve Jobs, for instance.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be quite a blessing for him. And it's quite a blessing for my wife and I, Gail, who are running now strong in the last year since this happened, with 75 podcasts of our own and 4 or 5 dozen interviews that we've reached millions and millions of people now with the truth about what happened at the work.
I think I agree with Sean here earlier. It's not millions. You're not reaching millions of people, Gage. You're probably reaching maybe at the most tens of thousands, I would say. But you're not reaching millions of people. In fact, many people in the 9/11 truth movement have become rather disappointed with the way you're going now.
World Trade Center.
Okay, so let's go through a couple things. One, before we even get into this, can you pull up the New York Times newspaper? Click on that real quick. So this is a tweet I posted yesterday. I want you to go back to my tweet, but zoom in a little bit. Zoom in a little bit. Just click on it and yeah, there you go. So click on the New York Times newspaper, on a newspaper. Yeah, and see if you can zoom in. Yeah, you can zoom in on this one. Go a little closer, 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 closer. I want the audience to see this. Go a little closer on exactly the date. Exactly the date. Okay, folks, I don't know if you see this or not. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a fact, okay? 9/11, New York Times, Sunday. This is 2022. This is 2-3 days ago on 9/11. This is your city, okay? Let's look at the stories they have on the cover on the date of 9/11, the most tragic event that ever took place in the city of New York, okay? Which wasn't 300 years ago, not 200 years ago, not 100 years ago. It was just 21 years ago. So the top story to the right, you see what? Ukraine reclaims key eastern city, reshaping battle. Apparently that's more important than what happened 21 years ago. The main story, headline, failing schools, public funds. Okay, maybe that's more important than what happened to that city 21 years ago. Go a little lower, go a little lower, go a little lower. Roe's reversal changes ways doctors work. Okay, so that's definitely more important than 9/11. Okay. The US Open champion and the ruler of her sport. Okay, that's, of course, more important than 9/11. Trump's lawyers seek legal aid for themselves. Oh, yeah, absolutely. In bidding farewell to Queen, rest in peace. Not saying she doesn't need to have the story there. Of course, that's a massive story and heartbreaking for the people of that country who see her as a hero. And then look at the stories at the bottom. Go a little closer on the stories at the bottom, okay? Little story. So Regent definitely made it. So Regent got their ad in there. Housing legacy in France. I don't see a reporter's violent end, dominant but challenged, a scandal 10 years brewing, not a single story on the biggest paper in America of 9/11, in which that tragic event, which is single-handedly the biggest tragic event that happened since John F. Kennedy assassination. You don't put that story here. Maybe even the attempt assassination on Reagan, but didn't happen. This story's not on the New York Times. This makes me very uncomfortable. What we talk about today with you, you're going to get some pushback from us. You can have some people here that's.
What could they possibly say at this point, 21 years later? Now, I agree. Yeah, they should have put like maybe a small article about the ceremony that was going to take place. But like the New York, I live in New York. So they had, you know, front page with the Post, Daily News, blaring about the 21st anniversary. But what else are they going to add? Anything new? First of all, they're not going to add anything about any actual anomalies that took place in 9/11. You can forget about that. New York Times is a neoconservative rag. But at the same time, it gets a little repetitive when you talk about the ceremony over and over again. So, I don't know what else to say on that other than, what could they put on there?
Nothing that's good optics, because they would only be reporting on the failures of the military expansion in the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they would be reporting about how it's now confirmed that, you've got a Saudi state connection with 9/11 hijackers. No matter what news they'd be reporting, it wouldn't look good.
Yeah, Darren, now you live in Michigan, so like was the newspapers like had 9/11 on front page?
No, it wasn't front page, but there was stuff in the newspaper regarding it. Basically just remembering that day, the families, the victims of that day, which I think is important. Because I think that's why a lot of us do it, is these justice for these families and victims that fell on that day. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't front page, but it was like a couple pages in type of thing.
Ed,
So.
was that the same for you over there in LA?
I don't read the papers here, so I couldn't tell you.
You're better than all of us.
But I will say this though. I mean, think
What's
about
that?
it. I will say this though, if you think about it, the New York Times, the attacks happened in their backyard. The 20-year anniversary would have been if I was running this paper, I was like, okay, when do we stop running stories on this? How long do we have to keep this up? Do we do it forever? We don't run stories on the Pearl Harbor anymore in the newspapers after, December 7th.
Oh, good point.
So it's like, how often do we, how long do we have to continue doing this? If I was a newspaper editor, I'd be like, do we continue doing this? The 20-year anniversary seemed like a good place to hit it hard. And then maybe on the 21st year, we can move on. That would be how I would look at it.
But why they don't want to tell this story, for some of the people out there, whether you're a conspiracy theorist or not, why are you not wanting to tell history? Okay. And this isn't history like where everybody who works for New York Times now, were they born on 9/12/2001 that they forgot? Is that what it is? Did everybody who works there is only 21 years old? Is that kind of what the story is? Or was this, we missed it, it's our fault? I don't buy that, because typically a magazine, newspaper as big as yours is going to go through 50 different approvals before somebody goes on there. This is intentional, and it's an insult to the American history, firefighters, everybody that sacrificed their lives, the people who lost their kids, their husbands, their wives, their daughters, their sons, their peers, their best friends, their cousins. You don't tell that story. It's a disgrace and an insult to all of those families from the premier newspaper that they call themselves the premier newspaper. You just lost a lot of credibility with me, but that's my rant. Having said that, let's get right into it. So question for you.
Can I give you one? Number one, I wholeheartedly agree with you. That's very weird. I don't think you're going conspiracy theorist on
I'm
this
just saying
whatsoever. It's just an insult. What I would like to understand is, what have they done for the last 20 years prior to this? Meaning last year was the 20th anniversary. What did they do on that? I don't know if you can find that out, what the cover was on that. And did they do this every single year prior to this 21st year? There
Good
must
point.
be some justification. This isn't just, oops, error omitted.
I understand where you're going with this. I see zero justification. There are certain things that's called ritual, respect for your community, respect for your background. I'm a Syrian Armenian from Iran, okay? Those things matter to me. Assyrian, Armenian, Iran, Christian, American. Those things are always going to matter to me. You're Jewish. You grew up in Miami. Events that happen in Miami, you tell me stories about what happened. Those things matter to me. You were telling me a story about a guy named Jason the other day. I don't know the story. You know the story, but people in Miami know that story. You cannot have a story like this with a newspaper like this, and for you to say, well, maybe they just don't cover it every day. I have a hard time.
No, I'm not justifying this.
I understand.
I'm skeptical like you. I'm appreciative of what you're saying like you.
Year. They put the story 9/11. This was last year.
Okay, so this is last year.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it on the front page?
Yeah, that's the front page.
But it's not even that big of an article. That's weird.
Yeah, well, there you have it. That's what New York Times is doing. But let's go into today's about Mr. Richard Gage, not Dr. Richard Gage. Correction. So before we ask you all these questions, I have some questions for you to see where you stand. Okay. Some people, your critics, call you conspiracy theorists. Okay, that's what they say. So why don't we cover some of the biggest conspiracy theories of all time, and let's see what you say about it. Okay, where you stand. All right. Flat Earth theory. What do you think about it?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it. Heard about it.
Okay, but you think Earth is round or flat?
Well, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, that's tough.
Okay. I'll answer first and let you guys fill in if you want. All right. Why I took this part and edited the other parts, this is key, because this sets up the whole conversation right here. He mentions he's a 30-year engineer. He employs the scientific method in finding out whether diagrams or coordinates are right or wrong when he's building buildings. Oh, is in the edge of a building at the circumference of the 6 inches by 12 inches, but he has to employ its scientific method to see whether that angle will work on a building like that. So yeah, he has to employ it. But at the same time, he doesn't know whether the earth is round.
Yeah, that's a tough one because how I view it is if this guy's, like he says, 30-year engineer, knows all the ins and outs of it, but he can't figure out if the earth is round or flat. So if I'm new to this, why would I take advice from this guy about the buildings if he doesn't know that the earth is round or flat? That's just me. If I was like new to this, I'm like, I wouldn't take this guy serious. You know what I mean? So that's huge. That's huge. Right
Sean,
there.
I mean, like Sean, when I watched that at work, I actually was again. I always take the mailroom closet and look at the files and the clips, and I said to myself, I said, "Wow, if anybody who's on like the other side of the spectrum, fence sitters that are listening just to Value Entertainment and don't know anything about Richard Gage." Right off the bat, he lost a wide swath of his audience because no matter, even if he told the truth afterwards about certain things of 9/11, automatically they're saying we can't trust anything this guy says. Is that right, Sean?
That's the conspiracy theorists' greatest fear, I think, that people will think they're crazy. That's why we have the whole conversation point about what is a conspiracy theorist, and the meme is, is a term invented to dismiss people based on their beliefs. I'll say I'm about 100% sure that the Earth is not flat.
For sure. I mean, Ed, it's a problem.
I'm not
I
even
mean,
a scientist.
Isn't this a bad portrayal of those in the truth movement, even though they're not involved with the remarks of Gage, because he actually represents them, and they got to be disappointed with this.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be guilt by association sort of thing,
Yeah.
I mean, come on, it's like you just don't throw out everything you learned throughout history and throughout your education system, even though you question some of it because you weren't told the truth about some of it, but you don't throw it all out. There are certain things that are just kind of self-evident and kind of obvious, and you have an understanding of it. It's just I don't understand why he couldn't be definitive on that answer. Could he just, like you said, he just lost a whole swath of people right there.
Yeah, that's what I thought,
Yeah.
Ed, when I heard it. Immediately when he said that, I said, "Wow, he just lost thousands of people right off the bat. Now they can't trust him." Like I said, yeah, go ahead.
I'm saying if you can't differentiate if the Earth is round or flat, how can you lead the 9/11 truth movement?
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it doesn't even stop there. Listen to what he has to say next.
Haven't seen it other than what's been shown to us on the television. So what do I know?
So that answer is still not a certain answer. We know plenty of the Earth is
Right,
round.
right.
Fine.
So that's what we learned in school, and that's what I accept.
So you accept that the Earth is round?
Why not?
That's a bad answer. Let me tell you why. Is that all right? In other words, you're saying it's a black and white world. So you don't employ the scientific method, only not in these areas, right? You do it for the World Trade Centers 1, 2, and 7, but not here, right? How do you not know the world is round, right? There was recently, what was it, like 3 years ago, where the guy jumped off on the top of the, it was the largest jump into the earth. And I want to say it was like this guy Armstrong or something like that. I don't know if you ever seen it. He basically jumps off this little portion of the ship, and he jumps down. It's like 20,000 feet or something like that. It was huge, and you could see like the globe, the sphere. He's right at the edge of space, and it's just basically like, is that fictitious? Because it shows the world as a round globe. Basically, it was a great.
But see, they're going to argue that with a wide angle lens and it distorts the image. That's still going to
Yeah,
be
right,
the world.
but-
That's the flat earth argument. Yeah, but I
Right,
know what you're
but you
saying.
go backwards while doing this, right? Because now you got to prove that and stuff like that.
Right.
Sorry. You're. But
I don't know.
you don't know that the earth is round? It is
That's
not
what I've
flat?
learned. That's what I've been educated. But when you learn the truth about what happened at the World Trade Center
Mhm.
and that the government and the media have been lying about it, I don't trust anything I've learned in my history books.
Well, that would mean that all the science and engineering that you have learned over the 30 years can't be trusted either because they came from books. Am I wrong, guys? I don't understand. You're basically saying
I hope that he's using. I mean, obviously he's using some discernment here, but you know, I just find it problematic. The whole thing is like
Very.
not being able to admit these basic understanding that we've had for several hundred years, several
Agreed,
thousand
agreed,
years
Ed.
even.
I think what people misconception is not everything is a conspiracy.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They think everything is a conspiracy.
Yeah.
If it comes from the government, oh, they're lying. It's a conspiracy. Da 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 da. I think
Nobody
that's
has ever walked too far and fell off the edge of the earth.
right. Right.
Right.
Not that I know of.
Right. I mean, I can't believe like these answers are coming from him because I don't think he realizes what he just did. He just basically alienated, I want to say tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people, and later on millions of people saying this is what the 9/11 Truth Movement's about. And this is the reason why we do videos like this. Like we're trying to save the truth movement, what's ever left of it, because of answers like this. It's just I'm like I was in shock when I heard it.
Because
That's
I
right.
looked at some of the
Adam, isn't that the number one problem facing the American public? That they're allowed to believe anything?
And know nothing. That's exactly right, Sean.
lies in our history, and I'm questioning everything at this point.
Fine, let's go to the next. Got it. Okay. The death of Princess Diana, was it an inside job? What do you think?
I don't know.
Okay, you also don't know. Okay. Apollo moon landing, did it happen?
I don't know about that either.
Okay, are you like what percentage scale?
The moon landing.
This is
He-
that's
I mean,
This is
what's
out-
next? Sandy Hook? I
This
mean,
is-
I go down the
Should have
line.
asked him that.
you're creeping into Alex Jones territory.
Right.
This
I
is
mean,
much
this is
so.
we're dangerous territory right here.
Dangerous territory,
Dangerous
yeah.
territory right here. This is it. This
It
is
is.
what this is the reason. Now, this is the reason why all four of us and Nelson, people like Nelson and Ryan Dawson, we've been trying to tell you people for years on end. This is the reason why the Truth Movement is not seen as a serious organization in the public eye.
Exactly.
And when you criticize us, right, and saying that we're the antagonists, so we're the brood boys or something like that, and you can't see the real problem at hand, which is right here, these answers coming from him, he's the authority on 9/11. That's what this guy claims. He's the authority. He's a big voice. He's on the biggest platform in his life right
Mhm.
here, right now. And these are the answers he gives. Is this what you want? Is this what you believe? I don't know what to say. I'm shocked.
Well, you're spot on. And this is like you just said before. This is why the truth movement is poisoned. This is what we talk about all the time. Is these conspiracies, like he's talking about you 9/11, it just kills the movement. Almost like people, it's almost like people are laughing at you to try to support you.
Right. I mean, take a look at their reactions, first of all. And, also, this sets up, like, Darren, this sets up the precipice for the rest of the discussion. Because at this point, anybody who is not affiliated with Gage or familiar with 9/11 automatically are tuned out because of what he said. Now, he could make statements about World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7, which are true, right? But they won't know it because now they're saying, well, what else is this guy wrong about? And they're automatically say, wow, this guy's way out there. So they're not trusting him right off the bat, for the exception of his own followers. And I don't even know if he realizes it. I don't even know.
This is where I wish we could just put Nelson in there with a suit on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Get Nelson a suit. Dude, and you talking about a total 360 in the truth movement. Now we can start talking the real stuff.
Yeah, that's
You know?
right. That's right.
I have to color you with that one.
I'm skeptical about everything we've been
Okay.
taught by the media and our government and our education.
You seem like the type of guy that would be.
I mean, to me, that's a profound statement because he went to school. He learned engineering. What do you think? I mean, he has to, if everything is going to be questioned, that means your expertise is in question by default by your own admission. Unreal.
It's a weird statement.
I'll grant him no. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Darren. Go ahead.
No, Ed, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I will grant him I'll grant him his expertise on architectural engineering, et cetera, and I'll grant him his assumptive understanding of that world because he has practical experience in it and he knows it better than I do. That's for sure. So I'm not gonna be too hard on that, but you can't be going on the show like this and saying you don't know if the Earth is round or flat. You can't do that.
It's unbelievable. And like I said, because it sets the precedent up for the rest of the interview. What else is he wrong about?
Because you're right.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just real
Darren, I
quick,
didn't
you're
mean to
right.
cut you off.
No, you're exactly right because now these guys are probably maybe laughing in their head like just do the
Right.
And then if he talks something sensible when 9/11, maybe they don't even believe him or take him serious.
Right, exactly the point. Right, bingo, it's straight on point. Because the rest of everything he says, whether it's true or not, automatically, no, it's not. This guy's nuts. That's what they're going to say in their head.
Right.
The JFK assassination, I want to know what happened. So I've interviewed God knows how many people on that topic. What do you think happened with JFK assassination?
I have serious reservations about the.
I agree with that.
About what we've been told about the JFK assassination. I mean, I've seen lots of videos on that one, so I'm highly skeptical.
Highly skeptical. So okay, so let's just play the game. Let's say it was explosive. Let's say this was planned. Let's say a group of people come to you and say, hey, Richard, we would like to figure out a way how to, get World Trade Center to come down vertically all the way down. What supplies do we need? How much preparation do we need? How much manpower do we need? How do we need to get past the security to get in there?
This is a good
to
question.
set them up exactly in the corner.
That's a great question. That's a great question.
How much money do we need to invest?
I agree.
And out of all this crew that work together, can we find these few hundred people that can get this job done to keep a secret for the rest of their lives that this never happened?
That's a great question, by the way.
Phenomenal.
It's very straight on. What I love about this is where you get into proving a positive.
Yes.
And not trying to prove a negative.
Right.
Because proving what didn't happen, there's so many variables.
Yes.
Very challenging to prove a negative. But when you actually get down to proving what did happen, instead of focusing on proving what didn't happen.
Exactly. And he's talking about what's needed for details about this operation that Gage is obviously agreeing to in this context about, the buildings being either wired or thermite being painted. And exactly, it's these small detailed questions about how many people would be needed, what would the time frame look like? Yeah, this is right. And I'm not saying that Gage should know these, but he actually should have basically gave a general answer to. Let's see what he has to say.
What does it take for us to do something like this? What would you say to them?
Fair question. And we have to start with how we want the Twin Towers to come down. And we have to,
I want it to come down the way it came down.
Yeah. And we're looking at building 7 here. But in the case of the Twin Towers, the official narrative tells us that the top part drove the rest of the building down to the ground and then destroyed itself.
He's trying to prove a
How do
negative.
you do that? First of all, that's not what happened. The top part is destroying itself in the first 4 seconds. You can see it in the videos. It's very clear. The top part is the structural steel is actually being liquefied, if you will. And so what happens after that? By the way, 156 first responders are hearing explosions.
Okay. I don't talk about physics because I'm certainly not qualified. I'm not an engineer, architect. That's why I cut off about 20 minutes when you saw that jump cut. Because I don't like going into this area, right? I don't like talking about things I don't know what I'm talking about. Secondly, just because 156 firemen heard explosions does not necessarily mean it came from explosives.
Right. Because you gotta remember, firefighters are not experts in demolition. They're not experts, in bombs, But you gotta think about all the stuff. You have a fully loaded plane at that speed crashing into a building deliberately. Think about all the things in that building that could cause explosions. You got fire extinguishers, generators, you got gas lines, elevator kit. You have all this stuff in there that can cause explosions. Think about what's happening in that building. Think about all that fuel and heat and everything. There's going to be noises that sound like explosions. Doesn't necessarily mean they were bombs planted in there. Okay. And that's the thing with Richard here, is he's saying explosions, but he doesn't say, I wish he could say, well, there could be this and this and this that could cause it, but we need to investigate it more, type of thing. It's just automatically, oh, they heard explosions, it must be bombs.
Right.
There's your
Though
conspiracy.
that's not to dismiss the importance of the witnesses, because if there
Not
were
at all.
people that witnessed explosions, it's also important that there were
Right.
people who witnessed hijackers at the airport and
Thank-
airplanes at the
thank you.
Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I was just going to allude to that, Sean, basically, because, Gage doesn't believe that a plane actually crashed into the Pentagon. And a lot of his files go even a step further, say it's CGI, whatnot. But they'll give precedence for the firemen who heard explosives but didn't see them. Now, as for the people who saw planes, well, no, they really didn't see it. But well, what's the discrepancy here? If you're going to take precedence over eyewitnesses, you're basically playing favorites here because of an agreeable worldview that you're trying to present, as Sean just poignantly stated right there. So yeah, I'm a little skeptical about, but keep going.
This is in the oral histories produced by Thomas Von Eschen, the fire commissioner. They're hearing explosions before the tower ever collapses. This is research by Professor Graham McQueen. It's incredible. And you wouldn't want that to be a part of your story, but there's certain things you can't get away with when you're planning this event. But after that first 4 seconds in each of these towers, we have laterally ejected, freely flying structural steel sections weighing 4 and 8 tons, 80 miles an hour out of the tower, laterally landing 600 feet in every direction, destroying many buildings around them. That's incredible. This is not like a banana peeling like the debunkers like to say. So we're getting at how you bring the building down, but we have to look at how it actually came down first.
It's funny because World Trade Center 1, 2, as there was a couple of years ago in 2006, a Dutch demolition expert, Danny Jowenko, who was interviewed about the destruction of World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7. He saw the videos and he basically said that 1 and 2 were definitely not demolitions. That didn't look like one. But I digress.
Squibs or isolated explosive ejections occurring 20, 40, 60 stories down below this destruction zone. So how can that be accounted for also in the official narrative? It cannot. And then we have the complete shattering of the structure, something that the National Fire Protection Association Guide 921 says, look for in your investigation of explosions and fires. Look for the shattering of the structure, debris thrown great distances. That's exactly what we find. And down at the bottom, what do we see? Because everything, the structural steel is ejected so far laterally, we have at the bottom of the pile only a 2-story pile of miscellaneous twisted metal. Well, where did the steel, what crushed the building if the steel is 600-foot diameter all around each of the perimeter of these towers during the course of its destruction in the air? That's 100,000 tons of structural steel in each tower, not contributing to the collapse of this building. Maybe it's the concrete floors. Each of them were 4 and 8 inches thick on various floors and an acre in size. But we look again at the videos and we see the complete pulverization of this concrete, which is across lower Manhattan in a 3 square mile
I could fast forward this part if you want.
I just,
I wanna
well, I want to
comment
bring
on
up,
that.
I want to bring up one thing though. He
Yeah,
still
go
hasn't, he still hasn't answered his question.
That's a good point, by the way. But I could fast forward this. I mean, I probably will. I thought I cut this
Now,
out.
Yeah, I want to comment about that, Lou. You know,
Oh, go
talking
ahead.
about all the dust and the concrete. If you remember, if I remember right, there was, can't remember how many inches or how thick the concrete was on each floor slab. But if you can imagine a stack of saltine crackers, you know, and then you didn't, and it's like the floors are basically like the saltine cracker, you know, it's a slab of concrete, and if you disrupt it or twist it or bend it, it's going to crack. And then it's going to, and when you have a situation like what happened to the World Trade Center, it's going to pulverize.
Hmm.
So you have floor after floor after floor after floor after floor of basically this concrete being completely pulverized. So it's not unusual to think that the huge amount of dust and the dust cloud and all that stuff was caused by the concrete within the floor slabs. That's a lot of concrete.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't opine because I don't know what's going on. But
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that is my speculation, but I think that's what they had a certain number of certain thickness of concrete within each floor. So that's 110 stories of, you know, concrete slabs. That's a lot of
yeah, I mean,
concrete.
well, I mean, it's 110 stories.
Right.
It's huge building. But yeah, again, not my area of expertise.
Before, and
And when did he buy the terrorist insurance?
after he secured ownership of these
This is
6
6
other
weeks.
buildings.
Okay, yeah, all right. This is about Larry Silverstein Properties winning the actually indirectly winning the bid to World Trade Centers, the whole complex from the Port Authority. That's not necessarily correct or factually correct. So what happened was, and you know what, I'm gonna just stop sharing here. I'm gonna bring up what happened with Silverstein Properties. And what happened was that, and I'm reading from Forbes magazine, actually, in January 2001, Silverstein made a $3.2 billion bid to lease purchase the World Trade Center, but he was outbid by $30 million by Verando Realty, Boston Properties, and Brookfield Properties, also competing for the lease. Vornado withdrew in March, giving Silverstein 14 days to negotiate a new bid. His negotiated bid was finalized on April 26, 2001, in partnership with Westfield Incorporated, and accepted on July 24, 2001. The lease agreed appliement to 1, 2, 4, 5, and World Trade Center 1, 2, 4, and 5. He owned 7, and about 425,000 square feet of rental space. The agreement gave Silverstein, as leaseholder, the right and obligation to rebuild the structures if they were destroyed. Now, this is huge because if we're going to imply that Silverstein, you know, had the towers wired up, then that would mean that they only had about till July to September 10th, 2001, because on the 11th, the attacks happened. Well, that would negate the 9-month plan that some people in architects and engineers are basically saying, you know, we'll wire the buildings. Well, if that's the case, and it did take 9 months, that means Silverstein can't be linked to that because he wasn't even the leaseholder for the World Trade Center, because he didn't even win. Vornado Realty actually won. Vornado pulled out. And then as for terrorism insurance, this is not like suspicious. For those who forget, and this is terribly, you know, unfortunate, we had a terrorism attack in 1993 with the World Trade Center when it was bombed by Ramzi Youssef and members of the Al Farouk Mosque. So yeah, I mean, you buy a building, you insure it for billions, and then you probably will have your lawyers basically say, hey, wait a minute, you know, maybe we should have terrorism insurance, because throughout the 90s, guess what was always on the target list? The World
Trade
Trade
Center's always been targeted.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
you
believe
go
it was
back-
required. He was obligated to
yeah.
cover it for terrorism.
I mean, wouldn't it be stupid not to get it because it was
Right.
already a previous?
It was also considered standard at the time.
Hmm.
because the likelihood of a terrorist attack in the United States was considered low then.
I mean,
Correct.
it was the subject of a terrorist attack, so of course you're going to
Yeah.
get terrorism
Yeah.
insurance on the buildings.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Just 6 weeks prior to 9/11.
Okay, so now you're talking, this is the kind of stuff that gets people thinking. Okay, so 6 weeks prior, guy comes in with $125 million of his own money, leverages up to $3 billion, buys terrorist insurance, you said?
Yeah, and he had no reason to buy these buildings. They were half empty, according to many researchers. So they weren't desirable. They required $5 billion to $10 billion in upgraded electrical, mechanical,
Wow.
and communication systems.
So you're telling me that Silverstein Properties looked at the World Trade Center and said, wow, this is a decrepit building. Let's put money into it. What?
Well, then why did the other company put a bid on it?
Right.
Why
Exactly.
would any company put a
Exactly.
bid on it?
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, why would anybody buy it?
Great point.
Yet they did.
Great point. Why would Ronaldo Realty put in a bid if that's the case?
Which buildings?
And
I don't even know. I don't even think Gage knows that part about Ronaldo Realty because I never heard him say anything about it. And
No,
I don't blame him.
he
I don't
doesn't know.
blame him. I don't blame, it's not his fault. I mean, that's, you gotta do your due diligence
it's
and research that area, but
Not common knowledge,
right, it's not exactly.
at least within the Known Truth community.
Right.
When's anybody?
well, he bought the 6 buildings,
WTC complex.
WTC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
That's right.
He bought that.
1, 4, and 5. He owns 7.
And other people who enjoy conspiracies talk about Neil Bush and the insurance connection. But let's set that aside. Let me ask you.
Tom, you can't say that without people not knowing what you're saying.
Yeah.
Neil Bush and the insurance. Can you
Well,
unpack
there's-
that 20 seconds?
Well, there are people that say that there was a massive insurance payout that was here.
That's something
And
people
it,
are.
and it goes right to this.
5.68 billion.
No, it wasn't. And again, I'm going to share the screen showing the article. So you don't, you just say, well, wait a minute, what are you using as evidence? So
That
actually,
number's
what I'm going to do is I'm
inaccurate.
going to share this article with you. It's Forbes magazine, basically, and it says, meet the billionaire who rebuilt the World Trade Center to heal after 9/11. He got a $4.6 billion payout. Guess what happened? He spent all of it. Not $1 was kept. All that money went to the rebuilding process. And you know what happened, guys? He lost property rights to the biggest building of all, One World Trade Center, because he didn't have enough money to rebuild that. And also, he was sued by the workers of World Trade Center's complex because he wasn't paying them in a timely fashion. So he got in a lot of trouble. He lost a lot of money. Now, you want to say long-term plan, he's going to make a lot of money? Probably so. But you know how long that's going to take? About 30 years to make up for what he lost. He's going to be dead by then.
Yeah, he's like
Yeah.
85,
Yeah, he's 80. Is he 85?
something like that.
It wasn't
yeah.
the reconstruction costs, which Larry Silverstein was obligated to put money towards. It was something like double the amount that he actually received in the payout, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Something
In
like
fact,
that.
he tried to sue for 2 buildings as claiming it's 2 different separate attacks. But then the court said, no, it was one attack and involved both of the buildings. And then he only got paid 4.6 billion from it. And he had taken out as you can see here, taken out $3.5 billion insurance policy, and his lawyers wanted to double the payout by arguing the attacks were 2 separate events. In the end, Silverstein was awarded 4.6 billion. 1 billion was given to the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to cover rent. Another 1 billion was used to build One World Trade Center. He lost the property rights for that. And on top of that, some question whether his self-made developer with little track record for building landmarks could pull off a project with Sutton Port. He lost a lot of money because of that. And I just wanted to point that out.
I think I could be wrong about that. I think the sum was about 700 million he lost on that.
Right, or 7.5 or something like that.
Was it that
Well,
much?
he would be out 3 billion or something if he's getting 4.6 and the cost was like 7.5. That's billions lost.
It's amazing that they think, but this is the type of information that, people say, oh, you see, he was in on it. Now, look, I'm not saying the guy's shady. He wasn't there on 9/11 when he's usually at that restaurant. He goes up there. He went on Charlie Rose weeks later saying that, he had an appointment. His wife told him about the dermatologist appointment. But suspicion isn't evidence of any type of crimes.
Exactly. What if he actually did have an appointment?
Right, exactly. Right. What if he did?
What
Right.
if he
I
did?
can't say he didn't.
What if he really does have a skin condition?
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to the notion that was brought up earlier about how everything is a conspiracy to some people.
Right.
Right,
everything's
And
conspiracy.
there's no opportunities for things to just happen
Exactly.
in that mind view.
Correct. And it goes to this, exactly the point he's making here. It has been
Perfect. So $5.68 billion. Can you find out which insurance companies paid that? Do you know who it is or no?
no, not offhand, but
Swiss Re.
Swiss Re pays that $5.68 billion.
that's a reinsurance company. That's not an insurance company.
And this is a great question, by the way, because if there was actually any kind of fraud on Silverstein's part, well, then why didn't Richard Gage basically go to court to say, hey, wait a minute, we got things of fraud. The buildings were planted with explosives or thermite. Basically, he could be awarded a great deal amount of money because of it.
So why aren't they taking all this evidence to court?
Good question.
You got a name, right? He's
Good
trying to
question.
implicate Larry. You got all this evidence that with money and him not being there. Why is he not being taken to court for crimes against 9/11 on 9/11?
I agree.
You know why? Because you're gonna get sued back.
Exactly right.
That would be losing in
They're
an
changing
expensive
the
way.
rule.
What's that,
Yes.
Sean?
That would be losing in an expensive way.
Very
Yeah, because you're
expensive
being
way.
held liable. Right.
Like,
You might, yeah.
in this scheme, yeah.
Because no company's going to take on that much risk, right, Pat? I mean, you're in the.
That's not what I'm Right, saying. exactly.
That's not what I'm saying. Listen, one of my clients bought a $250,000 insurance policy. Okay. But he died within the 2 years in contestability.
Contestability.
The insurance company spent nearly $25,000 hiring investigators. Okay. They investigated this thing and realized it's suicide. Guess what? They never paid out the $250,000. Insurance companies don't just pay out $5.68 billion without hiring the best investigators to prevent
Yeah,
them from paying
right.
that
Good
money.
question.
These guys' job is to hire to prove that no, this doesn't. So like accidental insurance is the most waste of money insurance you'll ever buy, because insurance companies can always make the argument. So to pay for somebody to pay $5.68 billion Swiss Re,
You'd have to have that coming out of another pocket. And the 9/11 Commission
Yeah.
even identified, as true, the put options where billions, not billions, millions were made on betting that the airliners and other corporations inside the towers would go down in value dramatically the next day. And they said,
Well, no. First of all, that has no correlation to the initial question. Secondly, they actually investigated that matter and found that whoever put in the put options for American and the United Airlines basically didn't get the money, and whoever put in those options basically didn't get a payout. So that means that this person really didn't commit a crime. Now, was it so unusual to put in like put options for an IPO or something like that regarding fluctuating sales regarding the airline industries? But yeah, is it suspicious? Yeah, it is.
oh,
But
this
not a
is true,
crime.
but it wasn't insider trading because it didn't lead to the footsteps of Osama bin Laden or Al Qaeda.
No, it wasn't insider trading because nobody got paid out for it. So there's no crime. And you didn't prove insider trading because you don't know the person who put in this put options. The FBI does. But basically, if there was insider trading, that's what that person would have been arrested for. Not because he knew something about 9/11. But he wasn't even arrested for that. In fact, the Security Exchange Commission didn't arrest this person if there was insider trading.
Let's
So
say
where did it lead? It led right to the Deutsche Bank, Alan Dulles.
I want you to
Right.
finish your thought. You got a question for
so. Let's stay at the root of the tree that we're on right
Did
now.
he say Alan Dulles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Isn't he like the head of the CIA back in the
Yeah.
Long
50s or-
dead. Long dead, by the
Yeah.
way.
And,
I don't know-
unless it's a different Alan Dulles, I don't know about.
Yeah, no, I don't know where. I just gave up. I don't know where he was alluding to.
Silverstein buys the WTC complex, 125 million, levers it up. Not unusual in commercial real estate, but certainly unusual, basically on the size of this. And then he goes and gets the terrorist insurance. Do you have that?
The WTC leaseholder buy terrorism insurance just before.
Well,
that.
this
Can you
is
zoom- can you
this is
zoom
by
out?
a fact checker. Just note that up at the top.
Can you zoom out so I can read it?
This
Tyler,
is
just-
just fact check.
Yeah, just
Oh,
make-
Snoops is their source.
Snopes.
Okay, so longstanding urban legend hold that World Trade Center leaseholder Larry Silverstein took out terrorism insurance just months before 9/11 attacks. Okay, go a little lower so we can read the rest. World Trade Center mixture. Okay, so the fact that they say mixture, that by itself, by Snopes, is a little disturbing. Okay, go a little lower, go a little lower. Some of the most persistent contemporary legends about 9/11 attacks involve people supposedly benefiting foreknowledge of events, whether it's a group World Trade Center workers or fortunately Colvin stick and escape certain bets that day, or investors who virtually bought put options on United American Airlines stock immediately before the attacks, thus profiting when the prices of the stock fell. Afterwards, American businessman Emerson famously signed a 99-year lease on the World Trade Center complex in June of 2001, 2 months before the attacks. Okay, this is disturbing. So let
By the
me
way, there's the insurance underwriting. Remember, the underwriters are called in on the claims.
exactly. That's
Right. The underwriters underwrite the policy, but then the underwriters with muscle are called in on the big claims.
So
right?
there it is. Silverstein
There
took
it
out an
is.
insurance policy that
Fortuitously,
fortuitously covered terrorism. After 9/11, Silverstein took the insurance company to court
Who
claiming
didn't want to pay?
he should be paid double because there were 2 attacks. He won.
There it is.
While the story obviously contains elements of fact, it's also partly fiction, most notably the implication made via the use of scare quotes around the world. Okay, that part, you don't have credibility with that one because that's just a meme that does. Well, keep going, keep going, keep
While
going.
you have Larry Silverstein's face up there, note that he was on PBS America Rebuilds program saying that regarding Building 7's collapse, he says, well, there's been such terrible loss of life.
True.
Maybe
True.
the smartest thing to do is pull it. And
So in other words, what Gage is alluding to is that Larry Silverstein is going to go on national TV and admit to demolition.
Yeah, why
Secondly-
he incriminate himself?
Secondly, what crime was committed?
I think the most important thing here to take away from is a lot of people don't know this is the fire department fire marshal Daniel, is it Daniel Nigro?
Yes, that's right.
He even said they don't need the owner's permission
Yes.
to basically not save the building. If it's unsafe, they set up a perimeter, a safety perimeter, and basically let the building come down. They were rumblings all day that building was going to collapse because it basically cooked for 7 straight hours from flying debris from the South Tower, pelted it, caused severe damage. See, they don't show you the side where it burned all day for 7 hours.
Mhm.
They show you just the one side where it looks like it's coming down. It didn't fall into its own footprint, because it damaged surrounding buildings. That's the thing that people don't realize. And Daniel Nigro even said he's sick of the conspiracies regarding Building 7. He says they don't need the owner's permission to do that. And I think that's very important. People don't know is the actual fire marshal came out and said that.
Yeah, and this is something that's not going to be raised by, people like.
No, that's what I'm saying. I wish that Gage would say that.
I don't
he's
even
just
think
saying-
he knows that.
Well, he just saying pull it. I mean, because that's a huge Building 7. That's one of the biggest conspiracies. Is Larry Silverstein saying pull it.
Right, right.
It's one of the biggest catchphrases
It's the
too.
biggest catchphrases. If you go anywhere,
And it's-
Twitter, Facebook, it's like, oh, who's behind 9/11? They show Larry Silverstein something about pull it. It's everywhere.
But,
Right.
but here's the problem with it though. What are you going to do with it? You're going to bring him into a courtroom, sit him on a witness stand, and ask him, "What do you mean by pull it?" And he's going to tell you, "Oh, I meant pull the firefighters out." Okay, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
And that's what they did because they said that it was unsafe. It was leaning. They pulled those firefighters out because it was unsafe. They knew firefighters. I got videos on my YouTube talking about firefighters saying, "Yeah, it's going to collapse."
Which they
know.
would have known after about 3 or so hours.
Yeah,
Which is about how long a building like that's supposed to last. So they
Right,
they
so-
pulled it at about 1:30, and then a
Mhm.
few hours later, then it eventually goes
Right.
without any explosive noises, by the way.
I'm going to use Richard Rotan's. Actually, I pulled this clip. This is
Oh
actually
yeah,
from
here it is right here.
Aegis versus World Trade Center 7. This is actually concerning about a generator that exploded in World Trade Center 7, which caused a collapse. And this is something that barely anyone ever brings up, this civil suit case that happened in 2002. Richard Rotan is the fire chief of the fire department of New York. And basically, the lawyer says, where were you working? Richard Rotan. I was working on the 23rd floor. I was in a meeting with First Deputy John Olderman and a planning supervisor, Mike Berkowitz. They were preparing for the next, this is not it. This is a fire drill. Sorry about that. The actual article I wanted to bring up was this. There was Daniel Negro. Thank you, Daniel Negro. So Daniel Negro basically says that at some point you left the operational post of West BC, correct? Yes, back and forth. Let's talk about the 2 p.m. meeting. You described that participated in the 2 p.m. meeting. Where was the meeting? We used the auditorium part of the auditorium in the community and on the west side, where they talk about what were you told about World Trade Center 7? I think it was repeated that the people that observed it, either from outside or inside, their feeling was that we had fires that we were unable to extinguish, especially with the lack of water supply, that there was significant structural damage to the building, and that committing further people to search the building, which we were told was vacant, or to attempt to extinguish the fires would be futile. And it was decided that we would establish a collapse zone and not operate within that zone, not let anyone operate within that zone. And we went back down to Vesey and West to carry out that order. Daniel Negro, confidential. That was the fire chief that actually went and met with Larry Silverstein when
Yep.
he was talking about pull it.
Pull it.
Right, exactly. So,
So
Look how easy
they
look how
pulled the
easy that
building.
was.
and by the way, also, if you're insinuating that Larry Silverstein said pull it in a demolition type of way, well, then guess what? Now you have evidence of him in an insurance scam. Why haven't you or anybody else for that matter sued him for insurance scam?
And we watched, excuse me. And so
No, they have
They-
that recording. Multiple people have that recording off of all the fire radios.
they gave the order,
Pull it.
and we and the building came down. Yeah, pull it. So he said,
Those are the
"Oh, I
words.
didn't mean
Pull it."
pull the building. I meant pull the firemen out of the building." Well, guess what? The firemen were told not to go into that building and fight that fire. They were told it was going to come down on its own. So they were held back, along with news reporters and people, first responders like Kevin McPadden, who says, like a train running under my feet. The explosions going on before Building 7 came down.
Sir, how convinced are you that this was an inside job? I don't want to use inside.
Colo,
No?
I'm reading this. I'm
Okay.
not going to talk. Go ahead. How can
Yeah,
we?
I want to know how convinced you are.
We know that the Twin Towers and Building 7 were blown up. Okay, and that
what
the
do you mean
official
blown up?
narrative is a lie. Explosive demolition, shaped cutter charges in the case of each of the buildings.
How convinced are
incendiaries.
you that
I'm getting there.
9/11 was an inside job? I just want to be very
Well,
clear.
the question we have to ask to answer that is, did Al Qaeda have access to 3 of the most highly secure buildings outside the Pentagon?
Yes, they did, actually. It was
What
just
if they did?
suggested. Right, exactly, right. Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Yes, if I'm correct, please correct me if I'm wrong. Mohand al-Shadi was actually seen in the World Trade Center, I think months prior, 2 months or 3 months prior to 9/11.
Yeah, then was it William Rodriguez that saw him?
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Darren. Yeah, that's right. And I know like Gage likes to use William Rodriguez once in a while as evidence for bombs in the building. So yes, Al Qaeda was seen in the World Trade Center. Why couldn't they? Right? I mean, I don't know.
Oh, I mean, we can always point to Denko Mechanical as well.
Yeah, we
Oh.
still don't know enough about Rocky Hamad, Shakur.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because we deported them, by the way.
Yeah.
Probably not. That leaves most of us very convinced that this was an inside job with security, like Securicom, Stratosec, involved
Jesus.
up until the day of 9/11.
So you're
Wait, time out. Securicom was in charge of the camera systems. They weren't in charge of security. That was Port Authority and Kroll, who they hired to do security in the building. So, and by the way, I love the Bush reference to Stratosec. He actually left the board of directors in the year 2000.
2000.
I think it was in June or 2000, something like that.
Yeah, Marvin Bush left.
Yeah, Marvin Bush, right.
100%, you're 90%, you're 80%. How convinced are you?
100%.
You're 100%.
There is no doubt.
So you could not
Oh,
be
Adam,
convinced
stop
that this
real
was
quick.
not an inside job.
What's
No,
that? What's that, Darren?
Okay, so he's 100% sure it was an inside job.
Right.
Name me one suspect. Give me one name.
Exactly.
One name, Richard. That's all I'm asking for.
He has a couple names. He drops a couple names.
Larry Silverstein?
I'm talking about someone who wired the building with
Yeah,
explosives.
right. That's what
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
I want
Well,
one.
You'd
name.
have
Right, I agree. I think that's first of all, I know like some people like to say this is the smoking gun of 9/11. Well, smoking gun means you have a suspect. I've been saying that for years. So
evidence.
show-
100 if he 100% believes it was controlled demolition, explosives, whatever, I just want one name. That's it.
me an explanation for all the evidence that we just went through and a whole lot more that we don't have time to get into on this short
So
podcast.
you're dug in on this. No amount of evidence
No,
will
I'm
say,
not
all right,
dug
this is
in.
not, well, you just said 100%, sir.
Yeah, but you're saying I'm dug in. I'm saying
Well,
nobody.
you just said 100%. I'm just using
has
your
sh-
words.
Nobody has showed me any evidence to suggest that the evidence that we've been showing by millions in the 9/11 truth movement now, that's censored on the mainstream media, that the government won't talk about, that the congressman won't investigate. There's no rebuttal. They just attack straw man arguments. Entities like Popular Mechanics, for instance, Snopes, etc. It's a
you just use Snopes
You just-
as an
you just
evidence
use
for
it as a
your
reference.
side. Come on, man.
pack of
What about-
lies we've been fed.
What's that?
Yeah,
Ed?
and what about those who are studying the geopolitical angle and those who know these things that we've just been discussing about Stratosec and about the Larry Silverstein's insurance, and we've been discussing this stuff. This stuff's not. It's not like it's it's not like it's not known.
Right.
We've been talking about this stuff.
We have.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why. So what happened? So that's the thing. If we were to explain this to Richard, if he hears this video or watches it, then would he be convinced that some of those issues are incorrect and those angles are incorrect? And I don't know. I don't know if he would, or would he just ignore it and pretend like we didn't say anything?
Right. I don't know. I think he knows that he knows us, by the way, but
Yeah.
he doesn't address these issues and even says that sometimes that the issues he don't address because he's never really looked into it, but yet he's actually interviewing people who are invested in this area but get it wrong completely or malign
Right.
it with fringe
Right.
conspiracies. So yeah, this is the problem that we have. And
And then he'll go on a show like this and then talk about it, but he never looked into it.
exactly right. That right there is the underlying problem, Ed, with me. Is that right there? Is that he'll basically say that I never really looked into this angle, but has no problem interviewing people who malign this view, the geopolitical view of 9/11, with all these fringe theories, and basically say, "Well, I'm giving them a voice because I really don't know." Well, then why are you giving them a voice to begin with? Don't you want your audience to be informed?
I think he's had ample time to do that research.
Yeah, I
Isn't-
agree.
You know,
A false narrative, and we've swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. But there are 3,500 architects and engineers. That's 30,000 years of technical credibility, staking their reputation, saying, I saw the evidence, I looked at it. People who take the time to review the evidence that in the documentary, 9/11, Explosive Evidence, Experts Speak Out, all come away agreeing. I've given 700 presentations around the world, 24 countries, 100 American cities. I always do a show of hands. Those who come in skeptical leave convinced. That's what it shows. And so, yes, I'm 100% convinced.
Yeah, but that makes me uncomfortable. And hear me out. All right. All right. If you set out 99% convinced, I'd say, all right, cool. But when you're 100% convinced of something you genuinely just don't know, you have a theory. This isn't a
I have
fact.
evidence.
No. You don't have full on 100% evidence.
Oh, I do.
You do. So you're the guy. You're the guy.
You have not seen the documentaries.
I don't care.
You have to do the research,
as much
or
as-
you'll only ever be 50% convinced. Once you look at the actual
I came in here
evidence-
completely open-minded. Okay, I want to hear what you have to say, and you've been very technical, and I appreciate that. And BizDog's probably following you. I'm a caveman with a suit on. I'm trying to keep up with you, buddy. But when you say you're 100% convinced of this, that means no counter argument could convince you of that.
Let's
No, I could be reduced to 99 if you give me a counter argument. Do you have one?
I'm not. This is not my
what's been-
expert.
Well, maybe the question would be, what's been one that you have been asked that you've been startled? Has anything been asked where you've been startled, where you took you from 100 to 99? Because I got one for you.
Oh, let's
Okay,
hear it.
here's a question for you. How many people, if this was an inside job or this was a setup? By the way, this stuff that you just said right now, very disturbing. Okay. Commentary here, everybody is saying the same exact thing as well. Very disturbing with the fact that we're talking about the insurance. And if you go a little bit more deeper into this, by the way, on what happened, the 1994 attack where the guy got $900 million, where this is kind of a business model.
Yeah, that was the Ramsey attack.
Yeah. So, and then you go into World Trade Center, which is
93.
estimated the cost of rebuilding a World Trade Center, which is in 2004, was estimated $9 billion, made Silverstein's court strategy a virtual necessity. And this keeps going. So we can take this insurance.
And guess what happened? He didn't have enough money to cover it, and he had to relinquish property rights to One World Trade Center, which was, the biggest building in New York right now. So again, he didn't profit from it.
Right? This by itself is
Oh, and they had there
disturbing
the
and
estimated
concerning.
cost. of
Let's set this
rebuilding was
aside.
$9
I think the
billion.
audience
That's even
watching
higher
this,
than I thought.
you ought to go take a look at this.
Well, I'm
Please take
sorry. What was that, Sean?
Well, they have there on that print, assuming it's accurate, they have the estimated cost of rebuilding was $9 billion, which is actually even more than I thought it was. I was thinking 7.5, 8,
Right.
$9 billion, and you get 4.5 back.
Yeah.
So you've still
Yeah,
lost
lost
billions.
money. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even. That's a good point because I didn't
Well,
know how
man,
much.
man, if he was behind 11, he did a really crappy job.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like a really good conspiracy.
Right. He did a poor job.
He did a poor job of doing this, man.
He's probably scratching
me
his
the
head going, damn, I didn't think that one through.
Yeah,
No.
him and the lawyers are sitting around.
He fired all his lawyers, man. You guys,
Well, right now, I just asked you for it. Here's the one part I have a little bit of skepticism, and I would like your help with this here. So how many people, I asked the question for you, if I came up to you, I give you $10 million, tell me how you would go about doing this. And you were about to get into it, and then you're going to tell me all this other stuff, right? Let's stick to that question, okay? If I wanted to do this inside job, the 85 elevator workers, 9 months prior to that, they took it away from Otis and went to Ace. Fine. It went from public to private. Fine. Silverstein buys it in June. Fine. He buys terrorist insurance in June. Great. This is very, very concerning, all these things adding up. How many people who are doing the job to set up the explosive in the corner would be sitting there saying, the hell am I doing?
Good point.
Okay. What am I really doing? Why am I doing this? Okay. And how much would I do that for knowing I'm setting up the place to come down? How many total people, if they really wanted to do this, this is my number one question. How many total people who really wanted to, who are totally open to doing this, how many would need to know when they're sitting, because the people that actually were involved, these elevator workers, they're sitting there watching this saying, holy shit, I'm a part of that. I contributed to that. Mm-hmm. How many total people would that need to be to accomplish this mission impossible mission that we have here? How many?
Fair question. This is not my area of expertise. I'm an architect.
Give me a high low.
It would take dozens of
Can
people.
we say 100?
Can you
I
pause
don't
it?
know.
Yeah, hold
Probably
on,
not.
Darren. Yeah, go ahead, Val.
He says it's not his expertise. He's just an architect. Why is he on the show?
Well,
He's-
he's there to talk about World Trade Centers 1, 2, and 7.
I know, but he says it's not my expertise, so he doesn't even know like how many guys or it would take to do this. You see what I'm saying? It's almost like a cop-out answer.
That's the problem, is it's trying to prove what didn't happen and not addressing what did happen.
Yeah,
'Cause you can
exactly.
nail it down if you
Right,
prove what did
right.
happen. But anything's up
Exactly.
in the air if you're just trying to say what didn't happen.
Okay, I'm just sorry. I'm just
No, I mean, look,
I just, man.
his comment, like I said before, his information is going to be limited to just a certain area of study. But then when he goes outside that bounds of information into the areas that he doesn't know about, he pretends to know. And that's the problem that he's running into while we're doing this type of
And this is the problem with 9/11. It's just way too much speculation. It's just wild, crazy speculation. Larry Silverstein is wild speculation. Okay. Everything is just speculating. He talks about he has evidence. Yeah. Okay. But he's not 100% sure that happens. You see what I'm saying? Everything is just speculation.
Right. Yeah, I got you.
We have evidence the earth is round.
No, well, according to him, no, it's not enough.
But they had 9 months to work on it undercover. They were moving tenants in and around the World Trade Center towers.
Okay.
The black operations like this are highly compartmentalized. The vice president didn't even know about the Manhattan Project. People didn't know that the Joint Chiefs of Staff were planning a false flag operation against Cuba.
What's that?
Vice presidents don't know much of anything.
They generally don't, because you would have plausible deniability,
Right.
which is needed for
Well, just not just that, but it's kind of a standby position. So nobody really takes them seriously.
Right, exactly. Right.
Where they were going to blow up a plane full of college students. They brought that to Kennedy. He said, no, this was only declassified much, much later. There are things we don't know about our government.
Operation Northwood, we can get into that.
You're talking.
Sir.
Just real quick. So if the government was behind 9/11, why would you classify a document like Operation Northwoods? You see what I'm saying?
Why would you classify it?
Why would you declassify it?
Oh, why would no? That's a good question. Right. If you want to hide a crime.
If you want to hide a crime, why would you declassify something like that?
Yeah, it's basically
months before.
unredacted.
Was
You
it
can
months
read all of
before? It was like months before 9/11.
Yeah, it was.
Well, it was declassified in the 1990s, I believe. But
was it like
just so
brought
happens
up?
like CIA puts it on their website in 2001 summer. I always thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was.
I'm impressed that Patrick Pet David knows about Northwoods. He called it by name.
He did.
It was alluded to, and he knew it by name.
Right. I don't.
About their conscience. These people who
That's not
set
what I'm
explosives.
asking. No, it's not what I'm asking. I don't even want it to go into conscience yet. I'm asking you a very technical question. If this is your world you're in, you're an architect, 30 plus years, you started an organization that's now got 3,000 plus architects and engineers. You're the founder and CEO that later on you were fired because of Spike Lee, who, the PR came in and said, we can't have a guy like this. They removed you from the documentary. They cut you out, et cetera, et cetera. Fine. So this is your world, okay? My world is a different world. You can ask me about my world. I'll give you my expertise counsel to you, right? But I'm here having you because you're the expert. I'm not the expert on this topic, right? Realistically, if we had 9 months, we got 6 months. How many total people? You said dozens. Can we say 50?
Okay.
Okay, let's just say 50. Let's play with that. 50 people.
Yeah.
So these 50 people, wherever they were, when they saw it go down, they're going to be sitting there guilty. They're going to read the stories of kids who are now fatherless on the cover of People magazine. They're going to see wives crying, mothers crying, fathers crying, co-workers crying, seeing the country that gave them all their freedoms in shambles. We look like idiots. We look like morons. You can't be that evil. You have to now go to fight this. The only way you can fight yourself, your conscience with something like this, is probably drinking. You're probably going to be doing drugs. You're probably going to be smoking weed. You're probably going to be doing some things on the side. I'm actually not being funny. I'm actually being very serious.
You would be full on suicide.
No. What I'm saying to you is when your conscience you're trying to escape. Most people drink alcohol because they feel guilty. They did something. They want to escape a pain that they're so now when you drink, what happens? You're sitting at the bar. One of the 50 is sitting at a bar. He said, hey, man, is everything okay, bro? Man, maybe you should stop drinking, bro. The bartender says, Johnny, that's enough. Maybe you got to go home today, bro. That's enough. What's up? What's going on with you? I can't tell you, bro. I can't tell you. Okay. All right. So he goes home. Out of the 50 men who were involved in something like this, most men are naive, and anything they know, they'll come home and they'll tell their wives. And Wives are going to sit there and say, babe, what are you talking about? Babe, I feel guilty, babe. I don't know what to do. I don't know who to tell. Out of those 50 people, let's assume half of them were married. Out of those half that were married, 25 that told their wife something that happened. Say half of them got a divorce. The wife who left them or got a divorce, she has no loyalty to the secrets. She then tells her friends why you got a divorce. And she says, listen, this is what I found out about him. Eventually, this thing's going to leak to the world because the 50 who know really, it's really 5,000 people to 50,000 people that have been told this story that know that Johnny told Larry, told Mary, told Jackie, told Billy that the reason why Johnny and Mary didn't work out is because he was working on world. We don't know any of those stories. So did we kill all these people?
Who would they go to? CNN? I mean, CNN and every major media.
No, it's not CNN. Podcasts, shows, articles, magazines, writers, Simon & Schuster, a publisher's going to take it.
You're talking about the crime of the century, which has been covered up from one end to the other.
I have a hard time with that.
And you're also assuming that these people who planted these explosives are like you and me with a conscience.
No, everybody has conscience.
These are cold-hearted
the elevator workers are cold-hearted
but it's not the point.
operators?
But I've met
who knows who
people.
was in there. We don't even know if they're Americans.
Yeah.
They may be foreign agents. We don't know what their ideological dedication and devotion is or what their mission is. It's obviously not to help democracy.
I've interviewed 15 CIA agents on the podcast, okay? And, you know, one of the best things that the former chief disguise officer, Jonah Mendes, said, I said, what are the qualities of being a great CIA agent? Charming, charismatic, great salesperson, persuasive, attractive, competitive, blah, blah. Only one thing. I said, what's that? When you do save the free world, you don't brag about it to anybody. Okay. Well, every one of the CIA agents that I sit down and talk to, they can't help themselves. Not that they don't say everything. We've had the director of CIA at our office before, 11 years ago. We've had a lot of interesting things that have former director of CIA. We've interviewed former director of CIAs. We've interviewed the former director of Mossad. We've interviewed a lot of interesting people, right? Man can't keep a secret for too long. Man cannot. We don't have that ability long term. We somehow, some way, eventually want to very, 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 very few people know how to do that. And that very, very is not 1%. It's 1% of 1% of 1% of 1%. That's not a lot of people, okay? Somehow, some way, you're going to be feeling guilty about the fact that you're carrying something this heavy and you don't want to go to bed. You don't want to go to your deathbed with that.
Now you're speculating, and I appreciate it. It's an important,
I am speculating,
and it's a good speculation, and I don't disagree with anything that you have said. But I wasn't speculating. I was giving cold hard evidence from U.S. agencies, from video evidence on our documentary, eyewitness testimony, which irrefutably and overwhelmingly proves the explosive demolition of these towers. None of that is impacted by your speculation and your correct speculation that somebody would have talked. I don't know about that. I do know that I've given you evidence that in a court of law would bring the perpetrators to justice for the crime.
Stop. What perpetrators?
Pause it right there for sure.
Whoa. Take it away, Ed.
Yeah, go
what
ahead, Ed.
perpetrators are we talking about? There hasn't been any names yet, so I'm trying.
Still waiting
I
for
don't
that
know
name.
Yeah, exactly. That's I don't know what. I mean, if you know something we don't know, tell us, because I don't know what perpetrators he's referring to, and that's one of the biggest issues I have with this whole angle with respect to the controlled demolition. And I'm saying it didn't happen, but it's, you know, you got to give me a name, give me a suspect, because I guarantee you a grand jury isn't going to care. If you don't have a suspect, they're not going to bother with it. I promise you that.
Agreed.
Regarding success in the courtroom, now, hasn't there been incidents in the past where the 9/11 truth, especially regarding like controlled demolitions and things like these, this stuff has had its time in court, and I believe it ended very badly. I remember, wasn't there an incident where some lawyers were actually fined for Ed,
Yeah,
what's
the
the term?
April
A frivolous
Frivolous
lawsuit?
lawsuit.
Frivolous.
So
Yeah.
not
That
only
was-
were,
that-
were some
that
people
was-
thrown out of court, but there was also some fines administered, if I remember
Yeah, that was the
correctly.
April Gallup case.
Yeah.
April Gallup lawsuit.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard.
Now, that in fairness, though, the April Gallup lawsuit didn't address the controlled demolition. It was
No,
addressing
that
the
was the
Pentagon
Pentagon.
issue.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not really apples to apples comparison, but
So
Wait,
he's
Go ahead.
100% positive that it was controlled demolition.
He says so. So yeah.
Okay. I'm not 100% convinced that it was. Okay. And he talks about the 3,000 architects. I know. Doesn't a 9/11 Truth, isn't that basically, don't they have, they're not all architects, or like some are just like regular Joes?
well, there's engine. Yeah, there's like the engineers.
Engineer.
But
Okay.
I don't know
okay.
what kind of, you have an engineering degree, engineering background or something like that.
I
can't
gotcha.
remember what it is exactly, but
I-
they're engineers. So you could be a hydroelectrical engineer. You could be any kind of engineer, but it may not be the as long as you have an engineer in your title, you qualify.
I
as
gotcha.
to be
Mhm.
put on that
Gotcha.
list.
Okay.
And then
I mean,
there's a whole
essen-
list of others who are non-engineers who are also part of that list, part of another list.
Right.
And there's more of those than there are of the
And-
actual engineers.
And I know I've said this in the past, and the only reason why I'm not convinced 100% was controlled demolition is because we don't have any other event to compare it to.
Yeah, I
That's
think
why.
that's the key issue right there, Darren, is we don't have any other events in history that could be similar, or even remotely similar
remotely similar.
to what we saw
remotely
on September
similar.
11, 2001.
No pun
As for-
intended, right?
What's that?
Remotely similar.
Remotely.
No pun intended.
No pun.
Oh yeah.
Ed, you and your puns. That's right. But anyway, I mean, like, I don't like, if you ask me about what came, how the towers came down, I believe that there was some type of incendiary device or bombs in the basements.
Sure.
But do I know it? Can I prove it? No, because this is not my
Right.
area of concern. Actually, there are much more qualified people like Chandler, Wayne Costi, and those guys. Like, I can't compare to those people when it comes to this area. So I'd rather lean on them. And they don't,
Right.
they're not irrational in
Right.
my eyes anyway.
century. So, and it's not just me. This evidence has been assembled from the 9/11 Truth Movement research, millions of them all together.
No, there are millions of them. No, there are not. In fact, I just went down to Ground Zero on Sunday and I saw maybe 10.
Screaming from the rooftops, not getting a word in except on C-SPAN, mainstream media, where Washington Journal interviewed me for 45 minutes. Guess what? That video became the most watched video
Yep.
ever on their program, more than Obama and others, which were setting records. And yet they haven't invited me back. So you see, there must be an arm of control over the media that you and I can't even comprehend.
doesn't-
And I don't
That doesn't mean, doesn't mean anything. It just means you were given an opportunity to speak. You spoke. There was a lot of interest in the program because of the subject matter, and then the show was over, and everybody went on their way, and you weren't invited back, probably because there wasn't anything more to discuss.
Or you weren't brought back because the stuff that you are promoting, such as COVID denying, stuff like that. Maybe they don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I think it's pre-COVID actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it was many years prior. But no, I think what Darren was alluding to is the fear of that, having somebody come back on the show after doing a little bit of digging and seeing that, some of the people that he's affiliated with are
Associated with.
propagating fringe theory.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And they probably
That's
just said,
definitely an
what,
issue.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's the issue that hangs around with him today. I mean, still to this day, as a stigma that sticks around. But it's his fault for commiserating with these types of people. If you're trying to get new people in the movement, try to not say that the world is flat.
don't think we can comprehend the control that they can exert over individuals who are told that their children will be murdered if they open their mouth
Say
at all.
70% of that 50, but the other 15%.
Wait a minute, they gave you
Where's
a
that coming-
shot.
where's that-
Wait. You went on C-SPAN. They didn't kill your children. They didn't kill. They didn't massacre you. You're on Valuetainment. You've been interviewed, I think, well over 70 to 100 times, maybe even much more than that over the years. So it's not like they're coming after you. That's like the Alex. What's that?
And where are the evidence of these threats?
Right.
It's not speculation.
Yeah. Isn't this basically going back to not knowing what you can believe, or at least not knowing what you can trust and therefore believe, implying that sort of like media or any kind of information is dubious, you can't trust it. This is very much going back to that same idea about how you can't believe it just because it's on the news or whatever. Certainly there's really great news reports regarding 9/11, and there's conspiracy theories that go along with them, but I mean, really isn't John Miller interviewing Osama bin Laden just as real as John Miller investigating urban moving systems?
Right.
Yeah.
You can trust some media. They can't lie all the time about everything, not 100%.
Right, exactly.
Percentages.
Exactly. But to them, it's like I link it into like religion, where the entire outside world, outside this belief, outside this sect, is sinful, and its worldview is wrong, and it has to be opposed at all costs. But yet, at the same time that he derides the media, he actually uses the media to propagate his theories. At the same time, I don't know if he even realizes the hypocrisy of his own statement.
Son is probably single and they don't have kids. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I've interviewed mobsters. Every living mobster that was a power player, they've sat down right in front of me.
Did.
From Sammy the Bull Gravano to Michael to Phil Leonetti, who masked his face because he had done surgery, and the only person he agreed to do an interview was with me, as long as I distorted his face so people couldn't see it. We did the interview.
Well, I mean, wait a minute, to correct you there. Prime time, he actually is the first interview he ever did, and he wore a terrible beard.
We conducted the interview. A lot of different people. I know some people who live some dark lives. Okay, dark lives. It's just a matter of time until conscience. There's only so much you can do with money.
But if I got an idea.
Okay, tell me.
This is important. For those of you out there who know something, contact Patrick, Bet David at Valuetainment and blow the whistle. This is your.
Wow. And I think you pointed out this before off screen. All right, I hate to use myself as an example. Look, I've interviewed 5 whistleblowers. All right, Mark Rossini, Ken Williams, Colleen Rowley, John Kiriakou, right? Okay, just some.
Anthony Schaefer,
Eric Kleisman, that's 6. For God's sakes, this ain't the the fringe elements of 9/11, right? These were people who actually worked in pre-intelligence that collect intelligence, say, hey, wait a minute, we got to report this to the State Department or their supervisors, their agencies, and they were either ignored, maligned, or even prosecuted on false charges. That's what makes a whistleblower.
And there were people involved in the actual movement of this whole of what was going on with respect to 9/11 and the hijackers and the intelligence, and they were actually in it. It's just, and you interviewed them.
Right. All right. Okay. And they come out now because I'm a small child. Nobody really knows. But yeah, these whistleblowers are out there. But he wouldn't know that, because actually, if he's going to give them any type of validity, that's going to be contradictory to his own worldviews about 9/11. Because none of those people I've interviewed are basically going to say that, yeah, a plane didn't hit the Pentagon. So I'm sorry.
Single opportunity, that best opportunity that I've ever heard, because he will air it.
Patrick at
Value. You know what? I message you, Patrick, by the way, if you ever see this video, which I know you're not, but if you ever see this video, I message you all these people that were whistleblowers. So
Valuetainment.com.
Patrick
at Valuetainment.com.
Okay.
If you're a true whistleblower and you were one of the people that you worked there,
it'd be great if he does.
If you're saying that person exists, I want to talk to you.
Isn't that unreal? 21 years you've had to study this area. You don't know whistleblower? To me, that's.
I want to talk to you. If you worked in them, you got proof, all of that. Let's talk about it. Because for me,
And doesn't that tell you the complete lack of study into the geopolitical arena? Here it is. He just doesn't know. It's
here's what I asked yesterday.
If you want
go
some
ahead,
true,
Derek, go ahead.
if you want some true interviews, Richard Gage, I don't think he knows, but he should bring up, hey, there's some guys from Alex Station. They had some
Right,
very pertinent
right,
information.
right.
Maybe we should interview them because they didn't
Maybe.
because they didn't tell the FBI. If we weren't able to.
Yeah.
There you go. Right.
Right.
There's some names for you, and they're not Arab names, by the way.
Right, exactly. A little bit, just a little bit.
A podcast prep meeting, and I asked a question. I said, how important is it for us to know this? What do you mean? How important is it as an American to know, listen, what the hell happened with 9/11? I'm asking an open-ended question from everybody in the room. You know what everybody said? We have to know what happened. We're Americans. We owe the truth. Yeah. You know, we deserve the truth.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
I agree.
I agree.
So, you know, I can't.
By the way, we're not making fun of you, Patrick. This is not you. This is not you. We're actually, we just can't believe that Richard Gage doesn't know these actual whistleblowers.
We're not even making fun of Richard.
Yeah, we're not. Right.
We're just trying
exactly.
to like
Yeah.
correct and hopefully, you know, maybe give him some information. You know, so yeah,
more and
nothing is-
more and more.
Right. It's not making fun of him. And actually, the people that follow him, look, you're victims of all this, and we're trying to reach you with
Right.
new information that you probably never heard.
Or you get deeper into this, the more and more you say, okay, this is pretty dark on what happened here. However, why haven't many whistleblowers come out? Why? You know, we lead the world in whistleblowers. America, it's like a thing to be a whistleblower. Come out, oh, you're a whistleblower. As long as the right political side's going to defend you. So the only reason why somebody wouldn't come out on this.
God, the most important whistleblower of our time since Daniel Ellsberg is Thomas Drake. And that case was huge at the time. 2008, I think, when he came out against the Thin Thread program and gave public information, not even private, classified information, gave public information about the program to the Baltimore Sun, and he got arrested for it by the FBI. And they made up these trumped up charges about espionage. In fact, he was the fourth person ever charged with the Espionage Act. That's what the Rosenbergs were executed for, right? So they said, how about you make a deal with us, Mr. Drake, or you spend the rest of your life in prison. For what? For what? He didn't even do anything. And you never heard, nobody's ever heard of him? Like I said, Patrick, I don't blame you because this is not your area of study, but I can't believe it. And this goes to show you that I blame the media and I blame these fringe theories that blanket these actual anomalies of 9/11, which could blow the lid off if we ever gave them any validity on programs such as yours, Patrick. I mean, my goodness, there are so many things that Gage probably doesn't know about and can't know about because he never studied this area.
And I think Thomas Drake is a prime example of whistleblowers because they had enough data to stop 9/11.
Yes, exactly.
But we want to talk about if a third building fell.
Right.
See, you see the anomaly here. It's like you have your Richard. We have a whistleblower. They had the data to stop it. They had the information. They had the intelligence. Start there.
What Darren's alluding to is this: a long time ago, signals intelligence operation involving Bin Laden and Al Qaeda started somewhere in 1992, and we're listening to the phone calls that he was making on the satellite phone for 6 years. Can you imagine how much data they had? And not only that, that they were listening to an Al Qaeda communications hub in Yemen for 5 years, from 1996 to 2001. You tell me what they were talking about on those phones.
Right.
This
They're
is
talking about
right.
They're talking about
Operations. Right.
Operations.
Exactly right.
I can't think of any. It goes back to motive and why. I can't think of any. You know, you Red Sparrow. You're familiar with Red Sparrow, right? Okay, what's Red Sparrow? Russian, beautiful women who would go, and it was their, secret intelligence where they would work and get powerful men to flip. How do you flip men? Historically, it's the easiest way to flip men. How do you get information out of men? It's very simple. Okay. You got women.
Compromise them and threat them.
You got threaten them about some information about them that you can release. and do something to the people they love the most. It's that simple. This is why a lot of times if you really want to recruit somebody that's going to be an agent, or we hear in the movies you recruit somebody that's got no kids, no nothing. This is why people who go front lines that maybe work high level jobs, Delta, things like that, they would like you to be single with no kids, and preferably not a lot of people you love. Makes it a lot easier because you're a little colder. You know, you're less easier to be compromised. I'm not convinced all those 50 people that worked, or, you know, dozens of people that worked on that, were not uncompromisable. I don't know about that. Again,
However, on the flip side of that coin, if I wanted to play devil's advocate, you can get somebody who could actually benefit. Now, if you get special operators from a foreign country that basically were trained, you know, seclusively away from like regular military, and you put these guys and basically say that, hey, listen, you're going to undertake an operation where we're going to have to kill some people in order for a greater foreign policy or geopolitical goal to materialize, or to materialize, and be in which we benefit from. You could probably get maybe a couple of people to be involved, and plus you also got to have somebody with enough powerful friends to basically pull this off while you're protected from prosecution or even arrest. This is the reason why I think if the buildings were wired, you would need somebody from a foreign country, one who has a detachment to the Americans that were going to die that day. So, right, that's what I would think. That's just plain devil. What do you guys think?
I would agree. You probably, I mean, or would it be implying CIA or something in this sort of situation? I mean, CIA are like ultra nationalists. Like they're all about protecting Americans and not kill. So if you have somebody that can make the victim the other, somebody that he doesn't identify, I mean, then maybe, I mean, even Richard Gage alluded to that there could have been some sort of foreign element, which I wouldn't necessarily disagree with. But that, again, that goes against the premise of the inside job. What you have is somebody else that can see the other as, you know, not the same as them, and they don't feel bad. I mean, that is assuming that we haven't been able to collect, I don't know, whatever it takes, how many dozen, 50 people or whatever they're suggesting in this model, however many people that are just psychopaths. Wouldn't they be loose cannons and difficult to rein in? I don't know. The bigger your operation gets with that, it seems kind of squirrely trying to keep it all under control.
Exactly. I think
I know he alludes to Ace elevators and them possibly, but I think Nelson brought this out. Ace elevator employees actually died during the attack, so I don't think if you're gonna get paid a lot of money to wire a building, that you could die too, type of thing. We're gonna bring the building down on top of you. So that's why I think the Ace elevator thing is just no good.
Yeah, this is
They
why
didn't have it in the budget, so they decided to take him out. You know.
Yeah.
Self-sacrifice, Ed, Ace elevator, right? Yeah, that's just a hypothesis. I would think if you're going to have somebody wire up the building, make sure that they have an emotional detachment to the people they're killing.
Purely odds, speculation.
And then how much?
But at the same time, real quick, at the same time, though, you have, you know, an entire Islamic extremist segment of the population and throughout the world that wants to actually do harm to the United States and actually
good point.
Attack and kill Americans, and they want to. And they actually attacked the World Trade Center already at one point and made it clear that the next time it wasn't going to stand. Rumsfeld, Youssef, for example.
Right. It's a good point because if we're going to go that route, Ed, because you put up
how better of a detachment you're going to get than that.
Yeah, I was just going to say you'd open up a really big can of worms now to address. By the way, they did teach bomb making skills at Al Farouk training camp. And basically Al Duranta, with a Duranta training camp, now Duranta training camp, which a couple of the hijackers actually went to, and even people that were involved with the 1993 World Trade Center bombing that came out of a Wal Jihad training camp, which is an older training camp that was based in southern Afghanistan. So yes, that could be the plan, and basically something that we tended to forget. Ahmed Rafai. Now, for those who don't know, Ahmed Rafai was somebody who was loyal to the auspices of one terrorist named Omar Abdul Rahman, the Blind Sheikh, who is involved and prosecuted for his role in the Landmarks bombing plot, in which he worked for the fire department and took these blueprints out of the garbage can. He was seen by another employee. He says, "Can I have these blueprints?" And she said, "Sure, we're throwing them away anyway." What were the blueprints for? The World Trade Center. Now,
Right.
if maybe he handed them off to somebody else and that they put the bombs in the World Trade Center, would that not be agreeable for Richard Gage? That Al Qaeda was involved with the bombing of the World Trade Center? It certainly brings up an interesting conundrum for him.
It's definitely a person of interest.
Right.
But
I
you
mean,
got-
it's a
but-
great point you raise.
But Richard, you gotta remember though, Richard also thinks the FBI did 93. So you have to destroy that narrative because we know the FBI had nothing to do with 93.
Well, I think the narrative that he, because he claims that Al Qaeda was most likely not involved with the bombing of the World Trade Center. But I
No,
mean,
they're patsies. They're
brought this up
patsies.
earlier.
They're patsies.
Yeah, right. They're patsies. But if they're patsies for the hijackings, what does it say about the bombings of the World Trade Center? Now that could be a possibility, and I think that brings up an interesting point.
Right. Right.
Is that that very well could be done? Now, would he? Now it would prove that one, the World Trade Center did come down from improvised devices, and it was a cover up, and two, Al Qaeda did it. So that would pose a problem for Richard Gage because he actually thinks that they're patsies for the World Trade for the hijackings.
Well,
Well, that
exactly.
could be your foreign operative.
There you go. Yeah.
Someone that feels that way and they have such anti-American sentiments and they're okay with the repercussions of those acts.
Sure.
So, right? Someone from the Middle East, maybe they're
Right.
Egyptian or Jordanian or the Palestinian or something, and they have like a real emotional motivator.
Sure. I think this is a fascinating point. I mean, it really brings up a problem because he agrees it's a controlled demolition, and two, that it wasn't Al Qaeda. But what if it's actually one and the other? You understand? So it's contradictory to one, but it proves the other.
Or
he's in quite a spot there.
Or there's a white van that had traces of explosives in it.
Sure.
Oh, that's urban moving systems.
Right.
Right. Why can't it be both?
They're foreign.
Exactly right. That's a great.
How much would it take to buy you? How much would it take to buy your conscience? $1 million? $10 million? Because for me, and Patrick is dead on here. Dead on. There's the human element and then there's the technical element. You are all about the technical element. Respect. The human element is telling me this don't add up because there's the before and there's the after. Hey, how would you like to make $1 million? Dude, sign me up. I'm struggling.
Point.
What can I do?
Good question.
Okay, great. We're going to need you to do this. All of you going to act in unison. You're going to put the explosives. All right, this building, that building. All right, great. We're going to do this. All right, cool. Then this happens. This image of this happens. I'm sorry. I don't care how cold-hearted and alone you are. When you see the people that die, the people that are jumping off the buildings, that America is under attack, that like your conscience is going to eat at you. No amount of money is going to make it easy for you to go to sleep at night. We'd hear stories of people committing suicide, just basically not wanting to live anymore because they sold themselves for $1 million. That to me is the part that's like, I don't get it. I know that you're kind of dismissing the human element.
Yeah, what's up?
Real quick, I think that's a beautiful question.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
because and I might sound like I don't know, less of a man here, but I've bought stuff behind my wife's back before, and I end up telling her because my conscience killed me. you know what I mean? And I just your conscience kicks in if you feel like you did something wrong. I couldn't imagine murdering thousands of people and just like walking away and like nothing happened. I think eventually something kicks in because your body does have emotions. You have, and you know what I mean?
You have to
There's a couple of
empathize.
problems.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's that?
No, I was going to say there's a couple of problems here.
Okay.
Either one, if you consider the scope of the operation and what it would require to carry this out with respect to internally, that means you would have to have that many people who are that cold-hearted, that are just cold-blooded and willing to kill with no conscience whatsoever. And it's hard enough to find one or two people to do that. But especially who
point.
work within government, who have jobs, who have families, who are now all of a sudden part of something that they are now somehow agreeing to. So the problem is that, you know, so you have that issue. Then to top it off, what you know, then you have the problem of finding, like you said, you got the people who have a conscience, who then maybe were duped into an incident happening, or duped into being compartmentalized, and then they see what happened and they put two together and realize they were part of it. Now they have to have the cold-bloodedness to not even tell anyone. So it's either, you know, it's either A, they consciously took part in it and are cold-blooded, and you got a lot of them, or B, they were compartmentalized and took part in it unknowingly, but then after the incident they see it,
Right.
and they see the damage it caused, and now they have a conscience and they need to tell somebody because they didn't know that was what they're getting themselves into.
Right.
Fantastic point, Ed. You know, a way around that is if you have an operative that's emotionally invested and willing, I mean, maybe even if you're bribing them, but if you have an operative that isn't going to be alive after the fact, and then they'll never have that weigh on them. That's
that's
why
a
you
really
have a
good point.
suicide.
Yeah.
And you're more focusing on the technical element. To me, that is the biggest story here is how would you possibly keep a secret and live with yourself if you were one of those perpetrators?
Just so I make myself very clear, I don't at all want to get to a point where people think I'm 100% either. I'm not. All I'm doing is speculating.
Well,
that is all I'm doing.
And I'm totally cool with someone saying I'm not 100%, and he's 100%.
A jury
That's
does
my
not,
problem.
Okay, but a jury does not speculate. They look at evidence. And our 60 exhibits of the evidence has been given to the U.S. attorney in Manhattan to be given to a
Wait a minute. They're not in court yet, Ed.
Well, no, it has been submitted to the U.S. attorney, but they're not in court. You're correct.
Right, they're not in court.
Right, they're, and then he's not saying that yet. He's just saying they got given to a U.S. attorney. U.S. attorney now has to give it to the grand jury. Grand jury then decides whether or not a crime has been committed, and then they initiate prosecutions based on the evidence.
Okay.
Special grand jury. And the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry has done this work. And we're making a film, 9/11 Crime Scene to Courtroom, to be introduced as a supplement. And that film, along with those 60 exhibits of evidence, are evidence. Now, put yourself in the place of the grand jurors who were asked by the prosecuting attorney to evaluate and issue indictments if you can. Based on what? Speculation or evidence. They're going to do it based on evidence. They're going to appreciate your speculation. They're going to have some of their own, but it's the evidence which we should be spending the last half hour talking about, not speculation. That's what's on the table here. That's what's going to convince a grand jury to indict people at top levels of government who planned and executed.
Wow, what a charge.
But the evidence, there's no, who are they indicting?
Well, Ed, the question is,
You know, what top people? And you know, if he knows there's top people, if he knows the evidence is suggesting certain top people, then who are those top people? Name them.
Right.
Well, he's talking about speculation. What was the Larry Silverstein thing? That was all speculation.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
This guy, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's circumstantial stuff at best.
Yeah, exactly.
And the implications of the whole Silverstein angle, it just gets really bonkers.
Right. And just to harp on Ed's point here, who are we indicting in the top government that he claims planned this? I mean, that's a remarkable charge. And this is exactly one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, is basically say, wow, you know, you make some remarkable statements. What's your evidence for that? Because if you're going to say, hey, Dick Cheney or Donald Rumsfeld or even George Bush is involved, well, guess what? Everybody here in this panel wants to know about it.
Ed, Let me ask you
What
something.
specific piece of evidence links them to the
Exactly.
to the
Right.
charge of a crime?
Right. Exactly.
Ed, I got a question for you. If let's say somebody like with Gage and they say Silverstein was behind 9/11, this, and that, could Silverstein go back at him
Absolutely. I would think so.
for like, I don't know,
Liable,
defamation of
yeah.
character or something,
Liable.
or
Liable.
liable?
Liable.
Liable. Civil suit. It'll be a civil suit.
Yeah. Although
That's
he
a-
did, although he was, Richard made it very clear though he wasn't that he is speculating.
Right. Exactly.
It would be an impossible
But
case to win.
okay, but then they're
Right.
talking about they're going to court here and they have names they want. Who are the names?
Well, that's the whole point. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Don't know.
yeah.
There's a
Exactly.
grand jury going to sit there and not know either. They're going to go, oh yeah, here's some evidence. There's some nanothermite. Okay. I don't know anything about physics and all this stuff. It's like, okay, I guess they're right. What do I do with it?
Well, when the grand jury come back and say, "What about the NIST report?" Because the NIST has engineers,
Yeah,
and they're saying it wasn't.
They would. They absolutely would come back and say that. Yep. Absolutely.
executed
All right.
and in industry who planned and executed the murder of 3,000 people.
See, right there, he lost it, right? Because now he's saying that the top government officials planned and executed the murder of 3,000 people. I want to know what the evidence is for that. Right there, he just did it. Right there, he just said it.
Exactly.
He just said it.
So he must mean what? Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld.
Yeah. I mean, who else is he alluding to? Right there.
Got to get to the bottom, not just 3,000, but 2 million in Afghanistan and Iraq. This started a $6.5 trillion global war on terror. We've got to get to the bottom of it. Our civil liberties have been stripped with the Patriot Act, the Military Commissions Act, the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. We can be arrested without a right to a lawyer, a trial, a jury. We can be assassinated. We can, that's legal. Now, tortured. There's lots of reasons compelling us to look deeper at this evidence instead of trying to dismiss it.
Can we talk about motive?
Yeah, we'll get into that here in a minute. I wrote something here that to just finish this off, and then Tom, I'm going to go to you. So we're having dinner with a friend last week. Maybe you remember this, and the conversation came up about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. Okay. On who Bill Clinton is, who Hillary Clinton is, how were they, et cetera, et cetera. I went to a funeral, my father-in-law, and we went to a funeral in Hope, Arkansas, which is where Bill Clinton grew up. We went to, junior high school, et cetera, and he, baby of the year, all these awards that he won, and you go see the house. Very interesting. So then we go to, this place, funeral home. And the owner of this funeral home, I go up to him and say, so let me ask you a question. Bill Clinton, how do you feel about him? I like him. Brilliant. Yeah. Do you like him or do you love him? We love him. How about the town? Does the town love him? The town loves him. Like loves him? Oh, we love him. Is he a womanizer? Absolutely. Wait, he is? 100%. You're serious? Yeah. So let me get this straight. You like him, you love him, and you're saying absolutely he's a womanizer. He says, yeah. Do you know who he's married to? He says, if you were married to Hillary, you would also be a womanizer. I said, okay, fair enough. I said, so go a little bit deeper for this. He says, look, here's what most of you guys haven't seen. This is what I've seen. I've seen him do a lot of funerals here for his family because his family was here. His uncle one time, he's doing a eulogy, Bette Midler's here, all this stuff. And he says Hillary was on the side. She didn't talk to one of us. She didn't greet one of us. She wasn't pleasant one of us. She dropped F-bombs left and right. And at the end, when he was done reading the eulogy and they're going to go to the plot, he said, don't expect me to fucking be here. I'm going to go back and you can do this. Okay, no problem. Now, I don't know the story. This is a story that's being told by somebody else to me. He says, man, she was the biggest. I've never seen anybody like this before. Fine, no problem. The story last week is a different story than this one. So the last day or two of Clinton's being president, I think Bill pardoned 300 people. Some number like that is how many he pardoned. They said the pardon, what they were charging, that you had to go through a person, that person's name is Hillary, was $50,000 a pardon, okay? You paid Hillary $50,000, you got pardoned, and that's how the number was. And the way they did it, they did through charity and all this other stuff, where pardon was $50,000 through charity. Now, do I know for a fact this is a true story? No. But when you hear 5 of these stories being told by 5 different people, you hear 50 of them, 100 of them, 500 of them, 5,000 of them, guess what? It's probably she is who they say she is, right? Okay. So what I'm trying to say with my example here, some people are commenting and say, because they killed all the people. If you kill those people, the surviving family is going to go and say, what happened? How did they get
Exactly.
killed? Suicide, all this stuff. There's going to be a lot of things to look into.
Exactly.
That's where I kind of look at this and I say, well, I think more people would be talking about this. But Tom, for you, this is a topic you've done a lot of due diligence on. You're hearing Richard speak here. How are you processing all of this stuff?
Well, I have no lack of respect for the architects and people that are out here. What I get to is WTC. It's always been hard for me to believe WTC 7, and what you've described there. I mean, the British broadcasted a half hour early before it actually went down. There's all these things around WTC 7 that causes a fair-minded person just to sit back and go, "Wow, wait a minute." And so that's always there, and I appreciate your evidence.
It's not as strange when you think about the fact that Jane Stanley, the reporter who was involved with that, actually later on, after being inundated by backlash saying, oh, she's involved in it, she actually said that she wasn't even in New York. That was a green screen behind her, and she was going by reports on the ground, and the warnings were the building was in danger of collapse. I read you the fire department reports. I even have more, and basically they even testified saying that the building was in danger of collapse at midday because they were inside the building, heard the building listing from swerving and the amounts of damage. Now, was there bombs involved? Was there like incendiary devices? I don't doubt it. I mean, I don't know. That's not my field, but I don't doubt it. I mean, look what the government does. They're much infinitely worse. So I don't doubt that part. But I don't doubt the fact that the firemen didn't even know what was going on and basically knew that the building was going to collapse because of the damages and fires that were involved with it. It could be a combination of both. Why can't it be? So, there's that issue to contend with. But again, look at what they're concentrating on throughout this whole interview. And I can understand why, because it's Gage, but World Trade Center 7, 1 and 2. Now, one issue about 93, Ed, I think your microphone's going wacky a little bit there. Anyway, 93, Pachinko plot, the NSA monitoring signals intelligence, CIA's Alex Station, and, Able Danger. I mean, these are all pre-intelligence operations that went back many years prior, and not a peep here. And this is the real anomalies. You want a bigger conspiracy? There it is. I didn't even bring up Saudi and Israeli intelligence. I mean, there's so much here, but yet, again, it's all being forgotten by this stuff. Now, guys said, no, I mean, it's a problem.
I think I've only heard maybe once Bin Laden's name in all of this. There hasn't been really no talk about Arab terrorism at all. The red flags leading up to 9/11, nothing. It's just basically, we were lied to, and it was controlled demolition, and we got to prosecute the highest officials of the government because the ones that were behind it. That's what I've got from it.
Right. And
incidentally, what you avoid in that sort of diatribe is you don't ever get to really talk about the United States foreign policy in the Middle East.
Oh, exactly.
What triggers this type of thing. And that doesn't become a topic of conversation at all. And that's really only to the benefit of the people that are, the hawks out there that love war. I'm sure that they're delighted that nobody wants to talk about what sort of repercussions are involved with our policy and, what would motivate a Muhammad Atta, right? About children dying in Lebanon, etc.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sean, it goes back to your point you made early in the day to me, was that, and I found to be quite important, is that the issue of what kind of an audience this is reaching. And if we're talking about Arab fundamentalism, this is not something that is generally talked about with the audience of Richard Gage and the audience of this show. Basically, they are from a certain demographic that doesn't believe in basically, Arab fundamentalism to an extent, I think. So I think that's a problem in talking about it. And plus two, Gage doesn't know really much of anything about it. And probably Patrick knows a little bit more about it than Gage, incidentally enough, since he talks about, he interviewed criminals and whatnot, and I'm pretty sure that certain instances where the mob is concerned, that there is some level of accommodations with the Middle East elements involved. But yeah, I think that's funny itself. But yeah, I mean, the audience is important here because certain things are not going to be talked about for fear of alienating that audience or losing the audience altogether.
I'd like to ask you something. Architects get consulted not just to design, I am paid to design the most amazing buildings out there, but also to get rid of them. And they say, hey, we're going to take down this ancient sports stadium. And
they talk to the structural engineers to find the key columns and beams in the building to target.
This is your world, and I'm not, testifying against that. But the structural engineers and architects go hand in hand, because the architect brings you these beautiful designs. The structural engineer tells you if it can come true with all the stuff that we have to work with these days, right? And the permits and the code and everything you have to go through. So wouldn't you ask, you get to a point, it's like when the police see massive frauds or massive thefts, the first thing the police always say is, where's the crew? Who could have pulled this off? And they have a feeling about what organizations or people have the kind of brains, clout, intelligence, access. And that's good police work to figure out, okay, who could have robbed the museum this is? Who's the crew? This wasn't rookies. And they start asking themselves these questions. Did you and these other architects who know structural engineers, and I know there's structural engineers that were part of these 3,000 signatures, right?
Over 100 of them.
Didn't you ever get to the point, and this isn't the speculation, to say, wow, what kind of a crew this would take in? And wouldn't some of you said, hey, I was part of the Kingdom being torn down in Seattle. Boy, the crew was like, da-da-da-da-da.
As a matter of fact, one of the technical explosive loaders who brought down the Kingdom is in our documentary, 9/11 Explosive Evidence. He says it looks exactly like a controlled demolition.
Because that was a flawed building, by the way, and it had to come down in a very special way because it was actually a dangerous building. I read a little bit about that. So it's interesting that one of those people was there. Didn't you guys get to a point and say, wow, where's the crew? Who knows enough about this to do it? Not merely foreign agents that worked with an elevator company inside. Wasn't there a thinking about this?
Oh, yeah. In fact, Kevin...
And then how do you get rid of them? Because remember, Oswald
Well, I don't know
shot.
that, but Kevin Ryan documents in his book another 19 suspects. He lays them out for you and their connections to NIST, who has connections to nanothermite. It's pretty incredible. Kevin Ryan is one of the major researchers in the country.
I just want to say Kevin Ryan also believes no plane hit the Pentagon and it didn't crash in Shanksville. So
yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. And the references that Gage references in this video is it leads into another problem regarding what he considers as valid evidence or information.
On this, David Ray Griffin's written 14 books on the subject, which fingers
where did those gentlemen
and
where
talks
did those
about
folks
who's
come
responsible.
From? Sorry to interrupt you, but you made a point there, and I want to dig into it. So, okay, that's a possible crew. Where did where did that crew come from? That was
Well, Kevin Ryan's from a water treatment plant, I think, a water company. Am I wrong or something about that? And David Ray Griffin is a theologian.
David Ray Griffin is also a no-planer. Sorry.
Well, he also thinks the phone calls are fake. So.
Phone calls are fake.
Yeah.
I don't think he believes in hijackers.
No, he thinks he believes the BBC article, the hijackers are still alive.
Yeah. So
that stuff.
There's about the explosives loaders?
No. You said
Kevin Ryan. Another.
See, now Gage ain't going to tell them that, Darren, because that would automatically disqualify them as authorities.
They're 19 suspects.
Correct. Where did those 19 come from?
These are top individuals, including CEOs of corporations in the World Trade Center, many of whose people were moved out of the World Trade Center prior to 9/11.
No, what's their roots to the connection of the terrorist attacks? That's the question he was asking.
Interestingly, some others were sacrificed. So, in fact,
Cantor Fitzgerald up there.
Wait. Sacrificed.
Sacrificed?
What the heck?
What? Did you hear that?
Yeah, he says they were sacrificed, huh?
Whole company.
And in the floors that were hit by the airplanes, he documents that 5 floors above and below, roughly, in the north and south towers, were retrofitted with fireproofing upgrades in the year or so before 9/11. So was that an opportunity to place fluid applied nanothermite, because we know it's fluid because it's dual layered, red and gray.
Go to
and
court
they're-
with that. Take that
Well-
to court. What he
Well,
just
he's
said.
trying to.
Yeah.
These tiny chips that we talked about being peer reviewed in the Bentham Open Chemical Physics Journal, called Active Thermitic Materials in the World Trade Center Dust. So he invites us to look at some of these characters who, in fact, the warden, if you will, of Iraq.
All right, I don't want to push it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
wow,
I didn't forget his name.
the warden.
Paul Bremer, was brought on with the CEO of one of these corporations in the World Trade Center.
Are they talking
Brought
about
on
Marcia McLennan?
the day after.
What's that?
Is he talking about Marcia McLennan?
L. Paul Bremer.
I know, but wasn't Paul Bremer part of Marcia McLennan? He was supposed to be in the office that day and didn't show up.
While playing the video,
9/11 to finger Osama bin Laden, and then he's made the Iraq leader, if you will.
the Iraq leader. The Iraq leader. He doesn't know these names because this is all new to him. I mean, wow, he doesn't know Saddam Hussein's name.
Dude, my daughters know Saddam Hussein is.
Hey, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ed.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, Kevin Ryan works for Underwriters Laboratories, and yes, the company the L. Paul Bremer,
Right.
yes, it was Marcia McClellan. Yes.
There's a word for that. So he's in charge of the reconstruction and after we invade Iraq. So anyway, he's
Whoa! I caught that lead. Reconstruction of Iraq. He was behind. Well, he was the Iraqi. Well, behind the Bush administration. He was the one who authored Iraqi Provisional Order No. 1 and Iraqi Provisional Order No. 2, which basically liquidated the military of Iraq and law enforcement of Iraq, which basically caused the country to descend into chaos, which led to a civil war between the Sunni and the Shia. Thousands of people died. The country was basically looted, gold banks, people's houses, murders all over the place, while the American military stood back and watched.
Yeah.
That's what happened. There was no reconstruction of the country because, according to Paul Bremer, he basically said that wasn't our job.
a very suspicious individual. They're numerous. Mayor Giuliani has his fingers all over this. Cheney was put in charge of.
I want to hear that.
Stop that.
Wow.
See, okay. So how I feel about this is like with Cheney and Bush and Rumsfeld. Do I believe they were behind 9/11? Absolutely not. I don't think there's absolutely no proof for it. Now, if you want to get them for being pieces of crap and doing, about, war crimes in Iraq and stuff, yeah, absolutely.
I'm with you.
Absolutely. But to say they were behind 9/11, especially Giuliani, I don't know how Giuliani would be behind it. I don't know, but you can't just throw names out there, then you don't have any proof for it.
Right.
I could say a name. I can say Steven Spielberg's behind 9/11 because he's Jewish. Yeah, I could say that. I don't have no proof though. You just can't say names out there and without no evidence.
Right. If you want to allude to somebody being suspected of a crime, well, guess what? That's not enough. Unless you're going to say, hey, listen, we have enough evidence to show that he was behind some part of 9/11, well, then show it. Don't say it and allude to it later saying, oh, he looks suspicious as heck. That's not enough for me. Do I think Giuliani's suspicious? Yeah, I live in New York. I remember when he was mayor. The one good thing he actually did was actually clean up the city of crime a little bit. He went, by the way, speaking of that, in fact, Patrick could relate to this. is basically he was the lead prosecutor attorney involving the biggest mafia case in the nation, in New York history, which was the Mafia's Commission case, in which Giuliani had a contract for his life. They actually put a $5 million hit on him. And all the people that he prosecuted were some of the biggest names in the country. Tony Dux Corallo of the Lucchese crime family, Paul Castellano of the Gambinos, Jerry Langella of the Colombo crime family. I mean, these were huge names, dangerous people. And he had a death threat every day. There was a contract for his life. That's the only good he probably did after that. After that, not so much. But he was a good mayor, actually. But after that, right downhill. But to imply him with the September 11th attacks because Kevin Ryan said so, yeah, you're going to have to do better than that. Because Kevin Ryan once said I was a CIA agent.
Exactly. I was going to say that. And also, too, yeah, Giuliani, was he behind? Absolutely not. I don't agree with that at all. His net worth is 40 million. So, yeah, he's probably a shady character.
Yeah.
Like he's done shady stuff. It doesn't mean that he was behind 9/11, though.
God's sakes.
You know, it's just stupid.
Ed, we can't hear you. No sound.
And why on earth would he be down with, basically destroying Manhattan of his own city?
Right. Good point. Destroying. I mean, the Twin Towers itself were a huge tourist attraction. Huge.
Yeah.
The biggest in the city. It's the biggest, besides the Statue of Liberty. It's the biggest tourist attraction.
The Tripod 2 exercise, which brought hundreds and hundreds of state, local, and government officials to Pier 92 in New York in a drill the day before 9/11.
No, my friend, I'm glad you asked about this because let me read you the first thing that I pulled up regarding that. Now, in regards to this operation called Tripod 2, I'm going to share this article with you. This is actually the New Yorker. It was written by Amanda Grissom. It was dated October 16th, 2001, on the morning of September 12th. That would be the day after 9/11. Richard Shirer, director of the mayor's Office of Emergency Management, who actually gave testimony to the 9/11 Commission, was scheduled to conduct a biological terrorism drill in a cavernous commercial warehouse on the Hudson, not on September 9th, but on September 12th. And the conspiracy surrounding this is that that on September 11th, they were there and they were conducting these drill attacks and biological attacks, and that they knew that the World Trade Center was going to come down because the night before, people from FEMA were actually coming into the city, and this is somehow related to foreknowledge of the attacks. No, because the operation wasn't on September 9th, as Richard Gage is saying, it was on September 12th, the next day. So it would only be, it's only commonplace that people from all over the country, from FEMA, as you can see here, the FBI, the Joint Terrorism Task Force from not just New York, but California was going to be here. They were all going to participate in this drill, and they were all coming in from like September 8th and September 9th. They were all coming in. And the conspiracy is that all they knew somehow went out.
Right.
I mean, what a jump, right? So, God's sakes. This is the reason why I wanted to do this video, because of that. And, just show you that.
And guess what? When Building 7 went down, all of the responsibility was transferred over to that set of operatives and agency leaders who took over the follow-up, if you will, to the attacks.
Why? Because the Office of Emergency Management worked out of World Trade Center 7. So it would only make sense that they would be in charge of the investigation of World Trade Center 7, the building that they were in.
Mr. Gage, did you just say Giuliani had his finger all over this as well as Cheney? Did you just say that?
Many people have fingered them specifically.
As what?
As involved in the planning and execution and the cover-up of these attacks.
Wow, I mean, that is unreal, man. Wow, I never
What's the
heard this
evidence?
before.
I think that's irresponsible of him to say that.
Oh yeah, I mean, wow.
Very irresponsible.
To me, this is a liable statement. It's a liable statement.
Well,
He
what's
could
the
be held
evidence?
liable.
Go ahead,
On a
Ed.
big platform- Yeah,
What
go
is
ahead.
the evidence? That's what I want to know.
What's that?
What is the evidence? That's what
Oh,
like.
It's not. It's
It's
just
that he's popular.
whatever
and he-
fits the narrative, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the. And he doesn't explain what the evidence is. He just says it.
I would
Right, he
not
just
go on.
makes the
I would
assertion.
not go on a big platform like this and just saying all this wild speculation.
Gary,
Again,
hang
this
on.
is
Hang
this
on.
goes all the way back to why 21 years later, this is still a problem because of stuff like this.
Darren, I couldn't agree more. To me, that's the biggest point of the takeaway of all this is basically what a platform this guy had. What a chance, right? What a chance
Yes.
to really get into the real anomalies 9/11. And what does he do? This. Just astonishing.
And it's just frustrating. It really is.
It's a killer. It kills me.
It's a buzzkill.
Because I never heard ever that anybody implied Giuliani was behind 9/11 attacks. I've heard some shady stuff regarding the fire department's mishandling of the radios, that they complained the radios weren't working. That's why Giuliani got booed at the 9/11 commission. No doubt that, there was a lot of shady stuff behind that. But to imply him with the operational logistic planning of 9/11, I never heard anybody say that before. Gage is the first person I hear this from.
Is there evidence that shows that Giuliani was talking to Fahed El-Kuso or to you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
operatives, Ramzi bin al-Shid? Is there transactions of money between these two? That's kind of evidence we could use, right? I'm
Sure.
just
Is
see what I'm saying?
Giuliani's phone number on the back
Yeah.
of Jara's business card or something?
Exactly. That's the stuff we could talk about. That's evidence.
That's a good one.
Oh,
That's a good one.
Giuliani signed a
a good one.
contract for Denko Mechanical. I mean,
Right,
that's
right.
right.
Right. All this stuff basically could have been presented right here. And boy, I know you guys felt like you were like this. Because here was a tremendous chance. What a platform. This is like sending Barbara Honegger on the Joe Rogan show, right? Big channel, big show, and you got this person to talk about it. Look, like I said, it's not an attack on Richard Gage, but my God, Richard, you had such a chance here, and to talk about like even stuff that you barely know about, but you didn't even get into that. You just basically start making charges on people that you have no evidence for. I mean, I just throw my hands up in the air. Wow, God.
You one of the people that believe Rudy Giuliani and even Dick Cheney were involved in it?
Sure, I believe that.
Really?
Because I have heard enough about it. For instance,
So you believe Rudy Giuliani played a part in 9/11? America's mayor on 9/11 was the person, the culprit.
he had to be.
Oh, really?
He had
Yeah.
to,
Please explain.
He had to be. He had to be.
so right
I
now-
can't believe it.
So right now, what is going on between those guys' minds right now? Like this guy.
Yeah, exactly. Good
exactly.
point. Good point.
Exactly.
Good point. They're probably thinking, wow.
Wow. Why do we have him on for?
Yeah, again, why we call this guy on?
So
And there are people who have researched his complicity. For one, he had foreknowledge of the buildings, the Twin Towers, coming down, and said,
Oh my God. What evidence are you showing that was the case? Why? Because he was outside walking around?
we got notice that they're going to come down. Well, wait a minute. What about the 343 firefighters? They didn't get notice that the building was coming down, so they could.
Wrong, Richard, because you know what you're alluding to? You're alluding to World Trade Center 7, in which he was told that the building was in danger of collapse. He wasn't saying that about World Trade Center 1 and 2. That wasn't the case, because where was Giuliani then? The Office of Emergency Management of World Trade Center 7, which was under evacuation. And that's why you see him in the street. You know that video? He's walking around with his, that's why. That's why.
Get out of there. Only he had it. This is on.
So what are the
Public
chances
record.
that Rudy Giuliani had a major part in 9/11?
That's very high.
Very high.
Yeah.
Richard, can I ask? So I have
I don't know,
a question
Richard.
here. I don't know how you, because I was asking.
Do the research. It's going to help
Do the research.
you, Adam.
I'm going to. I'm going to go.
So I was going from the technical research where
I
you've
would
got,
suggest
you know, all
Richard
the
Now, hold on, yeah, Ed. What was that?
I would suggest Richard do the research.
Right.
Did he really just say do the research?
Do the
That's-
research.
Sean,
It's
if you
out
get
there.
if you get a chance, that's a meme.
It is a meme. It's literally a meme.
It's a
Do your
meme,
research.
dude. Do your research.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh,
Do
I'm
the
sorry.
research.
I'm
All
sorry.
right. I gotta get a right picture and then put that there. Do the right.
chemical analysis of the dust
that's
and all the
amazing.
things are there, and that you're referring to and was commonly referred to. Okay, here's evidence. We put it under a microscope, with spectroscope, whatever we
Right,
do, and we test
right,
it. We find
right.
it. Okay.
He's right.
But where you just went, I was just asking, hey, where do you think that, where's a crew that would know how to do this? And I think we've kind of jumped over to something, and I want to ask you how you make that mental jump, because if you back into every conspiracy theory, then I could tell you that JFK was killed by Castro, the CIA, LBJ, the Freemasons, and Sam Giancana because Kennedy humped his girlfriend, right? And it becomes ridiculous. And suddenly you back into it. Well, naturally, that means that Kennedy must have been shot 64 times from 32 angles because all these people are upset.
That's a good question.
No, it's impossible. So
Right,
how do you jump
Right.
mentally from a dignified group of people that understand structural engineering and architecture to say, okay, where's the people that would know how to do this? Where's the crew? And jump all the way over to people like Giuliani and Cheney
Oh,
and
that's
everyone
such
else.
a good
It seems
question.
you go from technical stuff that's pretty tight to all the way over there to almost like the Kennedy conspiracy list, respectfully. Do you see what I'm asking?
You know, I got one thing about these guys. They're not even 9/11 research. They have the best questions. Just
Yes.
great questions.
That was a great question.
Yeah, that's a.
How do you
fantastic
mentally make
question.
that jump?
Richard's
Well,
scrambling right here.
you research David Ray Griffin. You research another
Which was
night.
the spark that
Wow.
You talk about like just avoiding the question.
Wow. Yeah. Right.
Like I want to refer to David Ray Griffin, who who's a no planer, basically.
And actually,
You got a lot of
David Ray
things wrong.
Griffin doesn't even allude to anything in his books about this subject, this specific question that he asked.
Right.
Wow.
That's
it's
right.
just- let's keep going. Let me. What do
was
you,
the
Ryan.
gentleman in the first group that sparked you. That was your
Yeah.
triggering moment, correct?
Yeah, in 2006. And then, you know, there's the evidence, which is overwhelming, irrefutable.
that's not what. Wait, time out. That's not what he asked. What was the team, the unit team? Who were they?
He's avoided that question all night.
Yeah,
it's
he-
been asked.
twice now.
It's
Twice.
been asked twice now.
Yes.
Positive body of evidence for the explosive demolition of the towers. That's what we specialize in because we're technical people. But we, as Pat said, you can't help but do peripheral research done by others, read it, and come to the conclusions that high-level individuals, specifically Cheney, who's put in charge of this Tripod 2 biochemical attack drill on Pier 92 the day before 9/11, and you can't avoid this type of peripheral circumstantial evidence and come to the conclusion that this was an inside job.
What's that, Ed?
But what if it's wrong?
It is wrong.
You're not going to research it.
Right.
If you're just going to read it and then take what they say is gospel, then what good is that peripheral?
Right.
That's a good point. It's just like me reading Theory of Mason's book and believing a missile hit the Pentagon. You
Right.
know,
And
I could
that's
read it. I could read it. It doesn't mean it's true.
Exactly.
Right.
Because what you read in that book, you have to make the points that you learned. You have to make sure those points are true and correct.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
correct.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
B, top levels of government had to be involved because among the becauses, the 9/11 Commission report fingered the Bush administration, the NORAD, the Air Force, the CIA, and the FBI as lying to them. This is the
Wait.
Wait.
About what?
What 9/11 Commission report did he read?
I don't know what he's talking about.
Did he read the Canadian version?
First of all, nowhere in the night, I've read the 14 chapters. I even have it uploaded on my playlist. Nowhere did they even imply the Bush administration was. They basically, all they had was from the Bush White House was Condoleezza Rice. They did interview Donald Rumsfeld, and that was it. I mean, but to the closed Bush White House, like Andy Card, Dick Cheney, Bush, allegedly Bush and Cheney gave testimony, but that's not even public. But as for like Colin Powell, no, none of them people. Andy Card, National Security Advisor, yeah, Condoleezza Rice. That was it. That was it. They threw her to the wolves, and she came out clean. They didn't even imply her with anything.
And you know what stinks is he's saying that, and those guys haven't read the commission report, so they're probably just gonna like believe what he says.
Right, exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
That's exactly right. Sean, he also brings up the CIA too. I love this part. First of all, yeah, that's the one agency they actually vigorously questioned in the Joint House, not in the 9/11 Commission. And guess what? Nothing happened. Nothing. Funuk, nothing. The only thing that they charged with the CIA was, they intentionally withheld information. That was it. Did they get in trouble for that? Nope, because they couldn't prove it. Meanwhile, they did. They did. Sean, I don't know what to make of this. I don't know. It's amazing that he just throws out these blanket statements and just hope it sticks.
A lot of memes, a lot of catchphrases,
Tons.
stuff that kind of sounds nice. I mean, it kind of sounds attractive when you say it in certain ways, and you kind of think, oh wow, I kind of jive with that in my worldview. I mean, if you're inclined to not like certain political figures or whatever, you might think, oh well, yeah, I don't like them because of such an unrelated reason. And then this guy says, oh, they're connected to some nefarious thing, and say, oh, it must have been them.
Right, because that brings up to your point that you made earlier to me about what kind of an audience this guy is trying to reach out to. And believe me, if you come into 9/11 already thinking it's already an inside job and that you don't know, you never study anything about 9/11, then guess what? All these sound bites are for you.
It's like the opposite of a real investigation, actually.
Right,
this is something you touch on, Adam, from time to time. It's the top-down approach. It's like you're looking for evidences, cherry picking really, but you're looking for evidences that supports what you think is the conclusion instead of working the other way around and following the evidence to a conclusion. He's working sort of backwards, really.
Top leaders, Thomas Keane and the other leader of the 9/11 Commission.
Thomas Keane and Lee Hamilton, for God's sake.
So when they say that in their book publicly, Max Cleland resigning from the 9/11 Commission, saying this is a national scandal. This was set up. It's the most partisan commission ever assembled.
Okay.
So we have whistleblowers who were leaders of the 9/11 Commission. And who wrote the report? Not them, Philip Zelikow. Philip Zelikow is a Bush insider who wrote his PhD thesis on the creation and maintenance of public myth. I mean, you start to look at all this stuff and you begin to form opinions which are based on facts. Can you prove all of the complicities? No, I don't even try to. But I can prove that these towers were blown up by incendiaries and explosives, and that's all we need to prove.
However, you did insinuate that certain people in the federal and local state governments were behind the planning and orchestrating of September 11, 2001. You did say that, and you basically gave nothing in evidence for that. So I would say that's a little bit contradictory.
I want to do a couple things here.
What's
One,
that, Darren?
No, I'm sorry, real quick. I just want to say, why hasn't one hijacker been named yet?
Soon.
Not one. Oh, soon.
Soon.
I didn't get. Okay, good. I haven't get a chance to finish it. I didn't finish it, so okay.
Yeah, but then again, it may never come up.
I show those two clips on how WTC 7 comes down. Two,
We don't need no stinking hijackers.
I want to play a clip from Donald Rumsfeld, but before we do so, let me read a couple of super chats of people involved here, what they said, just so you know what the audience is thinking. So one, Scott Rodriguez, $50, Uterman Scott, he's an insider with us. The jet fuel completely burned off right when the plane hit and exploded on impact. Throw gas or jet fuel on an open flame and see if there's any residual fuel left. There won't be. The claim that the fuel ran down the elevator shaft is false. Okay?
No, it's not, because actually in that French documentary by Jules Naudet, 9/11, it's called When They First Entered the World Trade Center, building. I think it was North Tower. They went with Oriel Pfeiffer, and the first thing that the cameraman says is that they found a man completely like melted on the side,
Yeah.
and he smelled the jet fuel, and
Right.
it came off the elevator.
Yep.
So yeah, there's that problem.
So that's Scott.
Well, even NIST acknowledges that 90% of the jet fuel burned up outside the building. The rest was gone in 10 minutes. Oh,
Yeah, okay, 10% out of what? 11,000 gallons, which equals to 77,000 pounds of fuel. I mean, that's a lot of fuel, by the way. I'm not
Yes.
saying that that's what brought the World Trade Center down. I have my own beliefs on that. I think there were bombs, but yeah, there was jet fuel that came down those elevator shafts.
it did was light fires, according to NIST. So that's the official
And that's
narrative.
according to NIST.
Yeah.
So if there's anybody that wouldn't, claim that would be them, but
Yeah,
even
and
they're
jet
saying
fuel
that.
is just kerosene. It burns, according to its manufacturer, 600 degrees Fahrenheit. That's nothing compared to
Yeah, and jet
hot
fuel-
fires.
All the fuels that end
In
with
open air.
ene, all the fuels that end with ene, right? Kerosene, epicene, all those things, they atomize very quickly, and they make
And that's why you saw the big fireball outside the tower.
What caused the fires inside the World Trade Center then?
Well, at
Position,
least the
yeah.
fireball on the outside of the tower was caused by a plane. We got that going.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That would that would be a big problem in the pants of the no planers, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would be a
At
big
least we got
problem.
client acknowledgement. That's good.
Yes, exactly.
Butler III. Anyone with demolition background or training can spot nanothermite from a mile away. The thickness, power, and speed. People in the streets running for their lives were running from nanothermite. What do you say to that?
Well, they're running from the major dust clouds, which were extremely hot. The heat was incredible. In the 2,800 degree temperatures documented by Bechtel and others after the towers came down. Now, when the towers came down, the mechanical action of the collapse would surely put out the fires that were there. And yet we have these 2,800 degree temperatures. They put a lake of fire. They couldn't get it off. They're pulling up in the crab claw excavators beams that are dripping with molten metal. There's no
Okay, now I know you guys know the story. 1993 World Trade Center bombing. At the bottom of the crater, it's reported by the firemen that were there saying that it looked like an inferno, a volcano.
Molten meadow. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
a volcano.
A barbecue
Exactly.
pit. Yep.
Yeah.
no official, and there's photographs of this. There's no
Unless we're going to say thermite was used then.
official accounting for this in the narrative at all. They can't, so they deny it. They put it down. John Gross, the NIST co-project leader, says, there's pools of molten iron. And then we show in our documentary dozens of first responders talking about molten iron.
Did they test for molten iron? Or did it look like it was molten iron?
It looked like it.
Yeah, it looked like. I'm not saying it wasn't, but that doesn't mean that it was molten iron. If you went to court based on saying that, the firemen said it looked like molten iron, well, then they need to make the next step, which is to prove it. And how do they do that? Well, they test for it. They
It's
didn't
more
do that,
realistic. They
did
would have said, yeah, it's more realistic. They would have said molten metal.
Right, exactly. I think that
That
would
way,
be
because they
much
don't
more
know.
feasible. Right.
Yeah, they don't know what metal it was. It's
Right.
only until they test it will they know it was iron or steel or whatever.
Right,
I
exactly.
think he's saying it's molten iron because that's what they discovered in the dust when they did their analysis.
Oh, is
Well,
that
he
right?
explained earlier, I believe, that it was based on the appearance, the color, the appearance and color
Yes.
of the molten metal. That
Okay,
was
yeah.
to determine basically what it was.
The
I'm not a
incredible
metallurgist.
documentation by do we have a mute on these buttons? I don't want to clear my
Push it
throat.
aside. Push it aside.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. Anyway, the documentation is incredible, and so we can speculate about the motives and the availability of these people to continue lying and wrestle with their conscience, but you can't deny any of the evidence that's there from these official agencies in particular, and scientists like Worcester Polytechnic University that says silver dollar holes in the beams. Jonathan Barnett, fire protection engineer who became one of the leaders of the FEMA report, saying that the ends of the beams were partly evaporated. Guess what? It takes 4,000 degree temperatures to evaporate steel. So even he is is there admitting unwittingly about the existence of these extreme temperatures.
That was an insightful chat. What is the rest of the audience saying?
Yeah. So the next one is, what about the trillions that went missing the day before 9/11 that no one investigated after the towers went down?
Yeah, this is Donald Rumsfeld,
Right.
who announced to the world that they still can't find $2.3 trillion. And
Okay, pause
the
it right
date-
there.
Okay,
Adam.
Sean, take it away.
This is another one that's kind of weird. So isn't this very similar to the Larry Silverstein meme about like basically
Yes.
admitting one's guilt? That seems so bizarre that
The
that
day
would-
before.
if this is such a highly planned, like this is supposed to be an amazing operation, according to what we've laid out here based on these theories, this is supposed to be an amazing operation. Why do we have two instances where somebody is basically admitting their guilt in public? That doesn't seem. I'm not buying it.
Why
Yeah,
would you
just that.
announce, what, right, Ed, why would you announce the day before that you can't account for money that may be stolen or missing? And then when you could just say nothing and let the attacks happen and cover it up?
Because I think the LA Times already did an article about it in March 2020. I'm sorry, March of 2000.
That's right. And I'm glad you brought that up as a lead up, Ed, because that came from a Pentagon audit that started in 1993 or 94 regarding 11 point something trillion dollars that were miscalculated funds. And then when the Pentagon, the Inspector General audit report came out in 99, it basically said that they couldn't account for $2.3 trillion, which were allocated in a number of databases that the Pentagon has regarding, say, of veterans' health benefits or spending of bullets or missiles, tanks, or whatever.
Right. They couldn't account for $2.3 trillion in transactions.
Right, in
It
transactions.
wasn't like here's $2.3 trillion and all of a sudden it just disappears.
Right.
It's like there was purchase orders made.
Right.
You can't find the paperwork. It was hard to
It-
figure out where that money went
Right.
to. The
And I think-
aggregate of all the money that's being spent.
Right.
Right. And this is from years of use. It's not like it just
Yes.
happened one
Right,
day.
right.
This is going back to
Even
the
if it's
Clinton
nefarious, this
administration.
is related to Clinton administration.
Right,
Yes,
exactly,
exactly.
exactly,
Exactly.
exactly.
And it was in the context of the legacy computer system they were using and how
Yeah,
it was all
exactly,
automated.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
so it wasn't like it wasn't the first time it was mentioned was on September 10th. It was actually already reported on.
Right.
It was in the news a year prior, so it wasn't anything unusual.
Right, exactly right. That's the point. And by the way,
In fact, it actually clears Rumsfeld because if he knows that we're going to go down the day after, and that that particular office is going to get hit with a plane, then him saying something on September 10th about it would make him a suspect.
oh my God, that's right. I didn't even think of that. That's right. He would be
Right.
implied as being criminal,
Yes.
criminally negligent. Right, exactly.
Going back
But-
to Sean's point.
Yeah, it goes right back to his point. Lovely. You know what's funny too is that we're not saying that there wasn't any type of malfeasance regarding waste spending, which is the Pentagon's the biggest waste spenders on earth.
Later, where does the attack on the Pentagon occur? In the investigative body of those researchers who were auditing the Pentagon, looking for that 2.3 trillion.
Yeah, funny thing is that when they attacked that office, basically the investigation didn't stop. I think now the expenditures are up to like $18 trillion or something like that. So yeah, it didn't stop all of a sudden and say, oh, the investigation is dead. The audit records actually weren't held in the Pentagon.
Okay, so the next one is YouTube has many videos where people have this is I think Paul KOV 12x, he's an insider as well, where people have taken the lives of their own innocent family members. The human element argument loses credibility when people can and have taken the lives of within their family. That may be right, but I don't know about 50 people to
Right.
be able to do that.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, you're
No,
so
stretching.
let's go ahead and look at this clip here from WT.
What did you say, Ed?
Not on that scale.
Yeah, not right. A big. That's you're.
I mean, it's very rare.
stretching it there,
Very
right,
rare.
Ed?
Yeah, it's very rare.
Oh,
C7. if you want to just press play so we can take a look at this, and Richard, you can narrate this while this
Yeah,
is
you'll
going.
notice the east penthouse falls first. It's an isolated explosion independent of the controlled demolition.
Where's the
There's no evidence.
Where's the explosion? I don't see it. I just saw the penthouse just collapse inwards.
Right.
I didn't see any explosion, and you won't see any.
It that's carrying through all the way to the bottom, as NIST claims. If you can show it again, you can see the upper part, right? Loop that. The upper part falls just a half a second prior to the overall. That completely wipes out the NIST theory that this instability traveled from the left to the right, east to west. And so what we see is the west penthouse and screen wall falling a half a second prior, indicating that the 20 core columns beneath it all gave way at once, which also betrays NIST's lie about the how it came down. And then the overall building comes down smoothly, symmetrically, at free fall acceleration, at least a third of its 7-second fall, even admitted by NIST. Free fall. They admit that. They denied it at first, saying that, gosh, free fall, if it came down at free fall, that would mean there'd be no structure
Right, they did
underneath
do that.
Sham Sunder of NIST.
That's what, by the way, that's what made David Chandler big, because he actually asked
Right.
that question to Shame Sunder, and after that he became the face of the truth movement, which, by the way, became later vilified by the same
Right.
people in the truth movement because a plane hit the Pentagon. That's all he did.
That's right.
Right, Ed? I mean, oh my God. And his reputation got destroyed because of it.
Yep.
Says, well, wait a minute. They admit later, being embarrassed in a public conference, that it did in fact come down by free fall. So they admit that in their final report, but they don't admit the implications of that. Where did the 80 columns in this building go so that this building could fall as fast as a bowling ball falling out of the sky? They must have been removed. They could only have been removed by explosives. And
How should it have fallen?
well,
If it's not a, how should
we've
how should
never,
it?
ever in history lost a skyscraper due to fires. The steel frame fireproof skyscraper.
Never.
Never. It's never happened. This is completely unprecedented.
It is unprecedented. September 11, 2001 was unprecedented. When was the
Right.
last time we saw airplanes crash into large buildings intentionally?
1945.
Oh, you talk about that by the way, I'm glad you brought that up because they do talk about that in a bit.
And NIST even admits that. And then,
Well, I want to keep hearing him, Tom. Please continue.
yeah.
No, continue. So I asked the question, how should it have fallen?
Yeah, so
You're saying never in the
let's-
history has a skyscraper.
Yeah, so now we're and we're speculating. So if column 79 failed, it's in the northeast corner of the building. Can you imagine how it should have fallen if it were to fall? It would have fallen over toward, like if somebody kicks you in the knee, you fall toward the injury. So that's how it could have fallen were it to fall, which is completely unprecedented.
Hey, the age you are, no offense, and what you come from, certainly you know about the first interstate fire in Los Angeles, like
Yeah.
88.
Very hot, very large, and very long-lasting fire in that building. No collapse.
And the building is still here. It's no longer the first interstate building, but it's still here.
There's over 50 buildings that have suffered major fires.
But this was one that
never
was
collapsed.
particularly hot. I remember reading about
Yeah.
this, that this was so.
1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. Probably.
How many of those buildings were hit by airplanes, by the way, or falling debris from a taller building?
How high is this? How many? 62 stories. Can you show the picture of it so people can see as well?
88. Take a look at that.
Just one of many, many, many examples. And after 9/11, we have the Grenfell Tower in London, which was completely engulfed from top to bottom. In Dubai, we
And by
have
the way, take a look right there. The sprinkler
thing.
system was 90% installed, but mostly inoperative. So there was no internal water. There was no sprinkler systems.
Oh.
There was no way for the fire department to get ladders up,
still it
ladders
didn't
up
come
past
down.
21 floors.
Yeah.
And so they went through this, and the building's still standing, still there in L.
It also didn't have a plane crash into it. I mean, I think that's a big missing aspect of this.
Well, the
You see
twins
that?
do collapse, at least based on appearances, since that's what we're going with
Yeah,
regards
sure.
to like building 7. The twins collapse at point of impact, as far as you can tell by the eye. So
Yeah, exactly.
And that was one of the hottest, uncontained, unsprinkled, in other words, internal system
How long
fires.
did the fire last?
Trying to find it now.
I'm just curious on how long the fire lasted. So you would assume when was World Trade Center 1 and 2 the when were they built? Can you go to it?
They topped out in 73. And they were the tallest buildings in the world.
Yeah, I thought there was a big bicentennial thing, and there were stuff going on in 76 there.
73.
73.
Well, 73 is one, but I remember a big bicentennial thing. It was in
1976, 200
Yeah.
years. Richard, have there been any other case examples of planes crashing into major towers?
Well, the Empire State Building got hit by a B-25 bomber. All the fuel went into the building. No collapse.
This is something me and Darren were talking about before, and let me share that information with you regarding the bombing of the Air Lamb bomber, which was on July 28, 1945. I just want to share the screen because I want you to see this, for example, because he's comparing apples and oranges, in my opinion. By the way, this is how many gallons are in a B-25 bomber, 670 U.S. gallons. You could see that, right?
Yes.
670 gallons compared to a 757 that has that much. So there really is no comparison here regarding, and by the way, the Empire State Building is a concrete building. The World Trade Center is a metal building. So that's why it didn't collapse. So just want to make sure I have the sound on there correct. I do. So yeah, it's a terrible.
You're saying the Empire State
That was before sprinklers.
What?
The Empire State Building,
was hit by a what now?
a B-25 bomber. This is like a
And it's
1945.
1945.
You know why I'm laughing?
There's no sprinklers in the building either.
I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because, okay, I'm a math guy. Okay, you're an insurance guy with actuary. Life settlement is all about math and actuary, right?
Correct.
A freaking bomber hits the Empire State Building.
That's a military plane.
That's a military massive. I've seen hits the Empire State Building and it still doesn't collapse.
Yeah,
In a building.
because you ever see what a B-25 bomber looks like? It's really small. And by the way,
Right.
the day it crashed, I think it was cloudy, and it crashed at a very low speed. That's what happened.
It was built
The
in the early
structure
1900s.
was not
What's that? Somebody, oh, I thought.
When was the Empire State Building built?
They were.
Is there any video of that?
When
No,
you-
this was 1945. So
There was video
I
in
doubt
40.
It's on Instagram. Back in the days when they were
Yeah,
using
right.
Instagram, they have
Structural engineers designed those buildings much stronger, actually, than they do today.
You can go
'cause
to a
they're
tour
less
of the
sure.
Empire State Building.
They're not
There's
sure
a
of
million
themselves.
bricks. There's a million bricks in the foundation. You
Well,
can go on a tour of-
Anything in recent memory in the last 20, 30, 40 years, not 1945, anything where a plane has hit a building?
Yes, actually, but not inside the United States. I think there was a plane in Egypt that crashed into an apartment complex. Have you guys ever heard about that? Yeah, that's I don't forget. I don't know what the year though.
Anything recent?
There's small planes that have hit buildings.
But massive planes,
Look at that.
nothing?
Let's take a look at this.
it's a big plane, man.
That ain't a big plane, dog.
Small plane.
That's a small plane.
That's
Well,
not
compared
a-
to-
Let's be super clear here. That ain't a fucking big plane.
Now let's talk about the
not
That's
plane.
a small plane.
The 760.
How many people fit in that plane?
You could probably fit.
Okay. and-
John
100 people in
Skilling,
the
the
plane?
structural
That ain't
engineer.
a plane.
Stop,
that
yeah,
ain't a
stop
plane.
yelling.
Adam,
Not a
Okay.
Dude, it
Cessna
hit a
172.
building that
Okay.
was built on old
military
standards.
bomber.
The Empire State
Granted,
Building.
yes. That's not a
It had a very old
airline
building.
passenger.
Let me tell you
passenger plane.
about the plane that hit the tower. John
Sure.
Skilling was the structural engineer of the World Trade Center. Leslie Robertson worked under him. He said, quote, he designed the buildings to take a hit from not one, but two 707s, the largest at the time.
Yeah, but Richard, let's be honest here. He said that the 707s were running on low fuel and flying at speeds up to 250 miles an hour because the clouds were it was cloudy.
Yeah,
That's what
he's not
that's
talking
what-
about plane going over 500.
Right.
It's
Fully loaded. Right.
fully loaded. Come on.
Right.
Which carries the same kinetic force as the 767 because they travel
No, it does. It's smaller, not significantly smaller. It is smaller than a 767.
faster. Anyway, but he said the problem would be that the fuel would dump into the building, but the building would still be there. So their intent was to protect it from such occurrences.
How much bigger is the
Okay,
commercial
so
airline
so the
planes
fuel
than?
did- So
What's
the
that?
fuel did dump into the building before he's making the statement that this like 90% of the fuel burned up.
Right.
So if you
Oh,
got
good
so if
point.
you got
Good point.
so if you got an aircraft
Right.
that has less fuel, and they're basing that model off of that, and you have now an aircraft that has that's fully loaded with fuel,
Mm.
then yeah. So is the fuel going to dump into the building or not?
Good point.
You know,
Right. Because that was the point of contention before. That's a good point, Ed.
This B-52 bomber,
They're bigger.
massively bigger.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude,
But they're not-
When was the Empire State Building
They may
built?
not be.
Hey, see, Richard Gage can't even get there. See, you're telling Richard Gage, by the way, that's significantly smaller.
1905 or something?
Yeah, but Adam, there's still okay. So if you think to say in the history of mankind, no building
31
has collapsed because of fire.
No
a little weird.
structural.
No, that's not true. I don't know if you could see this. Can you see what I'm having on the screen here?
no, yeah.
No, right. Okay, so I didn't share. But anyway, I have 12 instances in history where steel frame buildings did collapse in fire. And one is the General Motors plant in Livonia in 1953, the McCormick Place in Chicago in 1967, Sight and Sounds Theater in Strasburg, Pennsylvania in 1997. There's 12 other. And by the way, the most recent is the Plastical Steel, the 17th floor high rise in Tehran, Iran in 2017. So yeah, it has been, but also too, they're not as big as the World Trade Center. I mean, like Darren said before, and he said this many times, something that's good, I absolutely agree with. We have nothing to compare this with. Nothing even comes close to comparing this. Nothing. Unless we build like buildings closely resembling the World Trade Centers and fly planes into them using,
Right.
like commercial aircraft 767s fully loaded with fuel and have them remotely guided into the World Trade Center, then we have something to test. But until that happens, we have nothing that comes close to resembling that such a model and testing it. Nothing.
No steel framed fireproofed building. There's an important distinction. We fireproof our buildings as insurance to keep fire from becoming an issue, and then we sprinkler them to keep it from becoming an issue. So that dual reason is the primary.
Yeah, you can see it. If you
protection
watch
for-
a building being built, you drive by every day and they're building a building. All of a sudden you notice the steel's covered with looks like foam.
It's not foam, it's a cement essentially.
Right, but
lightweight.
to your eye as you drive by, and not being an informed person about these sort of things, wow, it looks like this steel's being covered with foam and now they're building it. And so you see it every day, but you don't know you're seeing it. That's my point. And you're saying that's the fireproofing that goes on modern buildings.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm sure you're familiar with the story. A little over a year ago, here in Miami, right around the block from where I grew up,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Champlain Towers came down in Miami.
Yeah.
Right? There was no fire. There was no plane. It just frickin' collapsed.
I did research that one.
Okay.
carefully.
Would you break that down?
Yeah. What we have is residents of the building looking down at the pool area, which is on a deck, which is over the garage, and they start seeing sinkholes in the around the pool. So and then what's clear from the photographs is that the pool deck falls and is skewered by these remaining columns. There's a shear failure, and then that transfers over to the building. So yes, it's clear that in that case we have a structural failure due to incredible lack of maintenance, A, and B, poor design, because the steel didn't go across the deck and down into the column in both ways to decrease the probability of a shear failure.
I have to read this comment. This is the comment of the day. John Hernandez. Adam, the chief structural engineer of Timbuktu.
John Hernandez, you're the man.
Funny stuff here. By the way, September 17, 2001, a statement issued on Al Jazeera by bin Laden saying the U.S. government has consistently blamed me for being behind every occasion its enemy's attack. I would like to assure the world that I did not plan the recent attacks, which seems to have been planned by people for personal reasons.
It was a statement attributed to him that he never made. And it was never proven that it came from him. It was a statement attributed to him. Now, he's done interviews in 2002. Heck, he did an interview with As-Sahab Media, which is Al-Qaeda's media arm, in 2001 in December, where he basically says that he praised the attacks. Never anywhere on video format in 2001, 2002, for those saying that, oh, can't trust after 2002. All right, I'll just use 2001, 2002. Nowhere does he deny the attacks were his. In fact, in the Jalalabad video, he actually, now it's alleged that the translations were mistranslations. Nevertheless, he's in the video praising the attacks with Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri and Suleiman Abu Ghaith. Now, if you're going to say that those aren't real people, well, then guess what? That would mean that they know about it and they didn't come out and say, hey, that's not our tape. So they never said that. And it goes back to that Onion article, Onion video, Ed, regarding, I showed you the other day about Al-Qaeda and that conspiracy theorist basically saying you weren't responsible for these attacks.
Right.
He also said in that.
What's
Hey,
that?
Adam.
Yeah.
Adam. Hey guys, I'm going to actually have to hop off.
Okay.
I gotta get up for work in the morning.
Oh, no problem. We went on a little bit too
Yeah,
long.
that's okay, guys. Have a good night. It was good.
Okay,
Good doing this
Darren,
with
have
you
a good
guys.
night, pal.
Take
All right,
care.
guys. Yep.
Quote, this is Osama
wrote
bin
that?
Laden.
Bin Laden.
He next
Said,
said,
I did not plan the recent attacks.
No.
and he said,
I
if
would
you
like
want,
to assure the world that I did not plan the recent attacks, which seems to have been planned by people for personal reasons.
and then he says, if you want to know who's responsible, look to the government inside of your own country who wants to make this century a century of war between Christian and Islam. That's the rest of that quote.
So if you could put people, actual names at the top of the list, motives, not agencies, not smoky shadow characters, actual names, what names would you put at the top of the list for the culprits of 9/11?
I gave you two.
Go ahead.
And the two you said,
I'm pretty sure.
you said-
I don't recall the
Giuliani,
two.
Rumsfeld.
You're saying
Cheney.
Yeah.
The evidence shows, which I am not the researcher of, but I have looked at, that Cheney's involved in this up to his neck.
Okay.
I doubt Bush is. He's not bright enough to be trusted with information like that.
So Dick
That
Cheney
I'd
top of the
agree with.
list, and then Giuliani.
Giuliani's involved. I don't know what the level of involvement in. He's the main.
That's amazing. You're going to implicate Giuliani and then say, I don't know what level, but I'm just going to imply that he's in on it.
Did you say
Unreal.
Giuliani or Rumsfeld?
What's that?
Did you say Giuliani or Rumsfeld?
Giuliani and Cheney.
Okay, I thought you said Rumsfeld. I could be wrong.
Cheney.
Mayor of New York. He was responsible for
yeah.
setting up this tripod 2 biochemical attack drill the day before 9/11, where
He's wrong
all
about
the
that.
responsibilities of the follow-up of the aftermath of the attack were transferred.
Any other major figures that you would put on that list other than Cheney and Giuliani?
Well, certainly Paul Bremer is involved.
Okay.
But see, now when you ask me that, all of a sudden now I am subject to you asking me about evidence. So I'd have to say that what I'm doing is speculating based on looking at other people's research that I encourage you to look at if, in fact, you're really interested in getting to the bottom of what happened on 9/11 as you.
Did you even bother to fact check anything that you read before? No, you didn't. And that's the problem. And that's why we're doing videos like this. So you didn't bother. You just believed it.
Say you are, you will read Another 19 by Kevin Ryan. You will read 9/11 New Pearl Harbor by David Ray Griffin, 9/11 Omissions and Distortion by David Ray Griffin, 9/11 Unmasked by David Ray Griffin, and the other 9 books that he's
Now go
basically
motive
just
with
read
Cheney
David Ray Griffin's
with
work.
I'm
So you're
sorry,
asking
Ed,
me-
Ed, go ahead.
So basically, just read David Ray Griffin's work, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Said it
No one
several
else.
times.
Right.
Yeah, nobody
Right.
else.
No one else.
Yeah,
You
don't bother with all
speculate.
the books you read.
Yeah,
How
that's
many
it.
books did you have to read to learn what you know?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I wish I could bring the camera and show you the bookcase. It's over 80 books.
Yeah, well, I think this entire thing is a lot of speculation. I mean, there's some,
No, the evidence isn't speculation, but I will say this. if you want to know the motive in a crime and you're a criminal investigator or an investigative journalist doing your work, what you do, first and foremost, perhaps, follow the money. There's
Correct.
an excellent documentary by James Corbett at thecorbettreport.com, 9/11 trillions, follow the money. He uncovers the financial crimes which make the murders pale by comparison that are going on. The bonds that were all of a sudden irrelevant, billions in bonds that were due on 9/11 didn't have to be paid. Those bonds, I understand, were used to bring down the Soviet Union, and they didn't have to be paid for. So those were debts that didn't have to be followed up. There's a gold heist in the basement of the Twin Towers.
Oh, Minga, I can't believe he brought up this spot. First of all, the Bank of Nova Scotia had deposited gold in the basements of the World Trade Center. And by the way, the Secret Service actually located these safes, but someone was trying to break into the safes to get to the gold. So they actually cordoned off that area, and the gold was actually taken by Secret Service, and it was delivered to the Bank of Nova Scotia. That's a New York Times report. And no, the gold wasn't stolen. I don't know where
That's
you get this
discussed.
from.
There are many financial crimes. And then, so where does the money lead? And it's a difficult and circuitous route, according to those who have followed that. But
Many will say it got siphoned off to all the big defense contractors, right? Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, all these groups, right?
The neocons were brought into the Bush administration en masse, a dozen of them. They developed a think tank called the Project for a New American Century, PNAC.org. In that key website where they put forth their goals, they said, we've got to have regional hegemony in the Middle East. We've got to have a vast increase in the military budget. But absent a catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor, these goals will take a long, long time to realize. And Bush writes in his diary the next day, today we had our new Pearl Harbor.
Can you do me a favor and play that Donald Rumsfeld video? And then I got a question before we wrap up.
Fail to adapt. And the fact that they can fail and die is what provides the incentive to survive. But governments can't die. So we need to find other incentives for bureaucracy to adapt and improve. The technology revolution has transformed organizations across the private sector, but not ours, not fully, not yet. We are, as they say, tangled in our anchor chain. Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. We cannot share information from floor to floor in this building because it's stored on dozens of different technological systems that are inaccessible or incompatible.
This is the day
There it
before
is.
9/11.
There's your problem.
Right.
Yeah. September 10th, 2001.
You're missing $2.3 trillion.
And those people who were looking at it got killed because the plane or whatever it was that attacked the Pentagon went right into that office.
And yet, the audit was from the Inspector General's Pentagon accounting offices, which started in the early 1990s. I mean, this is just slight research, not even heavy research at all. This is what drives me nuts.
Mm-hmm. How much more we got going on this video?
Yeah, about
the
10
technical
minutes.
stuff here, Pat, scares the hell out of me, right? The technical stuff. Going through this and listening to fair-minded scientists, architects, structural engineers talking about the stuff they found, the thing there. Either it's there or it's not, you know what I mean? And finding all this and finding the thermite and then seeing the pictures and then hearing the workers directly say, we don't walk over there. Why? My boot melted. It stuck to that, and underneath was like a turtle shell of molten stuff. These are workers that were cleaning it up with the claws, and every now and then they said they would get to this turtle shell, and you never stepped on those. You had to be careful because your boot would melt to it, because what was under it was still thermite that was just sitting there like lava under a volcano. So, okay, so you look at all that. But all the rest of the stuff here on this and follow the money, this and that, it still takes me back to where's the real crew? And so I see the technical evidence. I see WTC that was hard for me to swallow, but it's really tough for me to find the crew. And that's why I was asking you about your guys thinking about the crew, and it's led us down multiple paths.
Yeah, I want
Do you have one angle?
I want to say, because we've hit that already 3 or 4 times. Okay.
Yeah, but he didn't answer
But
it.
what I want to
He
do,
never
I want to ask this question. What other credible Jesse Ventura is with you, obviously, with what he said. Okay, so I've seen some of his stuff, but who else out there that's credible, that has a name, that's got influence, agrees with your ideas of what happened here with 9/11?
Cynthia McKinney grilled Donald Rumsfeld, who, by the way, is obviously implicated in the planning and execution of 9/11.
There you go.
She grilled him. She talked to him about the 2.3 trillion. She talked to him and asked him about the air drills that were happening, 20 of them on the day of 9/11, that took our fighter jets north to Canada and Alaska. Vigilant Guardian, to name one of them. And then there were hijacking drills that also put blips of hijacked planes on the radars of the air traffic controllers, confusing them. They're public records saying, is this real world or is this the drill? Turn off the drill. Stop these sims. And guess what? Those exercises didn't get stopped until after the Pentagon was hit. And by the way, it was hit, whatever hit it. It was an hour. We're told it was a plane. It may be a plane. I don't know. The question is, why was it flying unmolested in our skies for an hour after both towers were hit? So yes, Donald Rumsfeld, who's out on the lawn picking up pieces of airplanes for some reason and doing photo ops, was not in his office managing the attacks that day for some interesting reason we can speculate on.
But who else? Who else? You just gave one name so far. Who else agrees with you that's a leader of voice?
Oh, I'm sorry. Donald Rumsfeld, certainly.
What's that?
It wasn't his job to manage the attacks or manage the response. It was an on-scene commander who responds to the incident and takes over.
Right, exactly. Right.
He doesn't agree with me.
He said the lady that questioned him. That's McKinney.
Yeah, well, there are many actors, for instance.
Who you interviewed, by the way?
Charlie.
Who, him?
Who you interviewed, by the way?
Oh, right, exactly, right.
Sheen,
There are many
some of those
actors.
names.
Martin
Ruffalo.
Sheen, Mark
Actors are the
Ruffalo,
credible
Woody Harrelson. These are all people, Alex Baldwin, who have made positive comments, raised serious questions about the official narrative, have pointed to our work as being really important, but who have, well, Ed Asner is a key. God rest his soul. He narrated our documentary, The Mysterious Collapse of World Trade Center 7, where we document all of this evidence in just 15 minutes. It's right on my website, richardgage911.org. He narrates this documentary that exposes all of the key points of evidence there in 7.
Who do you think is the best president of all time?
JFK.
Second best.
I'm not going to have a second best because I think there's been so much corruption since then. I think that was a coup in our country.
Try a little bit. Who else would you say has been a great president we've had? No one's.
How about George Washington?
That's a safe one you say. I get what you're doing. Now you're being political.
Okay, give me Andrew Jackson.
How about in the last?
Andrew Jackson challenged the banking cartel
since 60,
of the day.
Since 1960, outside of Kennedy.
There's none.
There's none.
There's no uncorrupted president.
You vote?
Yeah.
You do vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's no uncorrupted president, but yet he votes. For God's sake.
Okay.
It makes-
Do you typically vote with Democratic policies or Republican policies?
It depends on who's telling the truth. Lately, nobody's been telling the truth.
But you still vote.
Yeah. Well, I think Trump told more truth than
there you go.
than others. So I did vote for him, but did he instigate a 9/11 investigation like he said he was going to do, which is why I voted for him? But no, we got nothing about 9/11 truth after that.
I asked for a different reason, and you know, for the only reason I'm asking is because I'm trying to see where your motives are to have a bone here to go. You know, when you're saying Giuliani, Rumsfeld, Cheney, all that stuff. I mean, obviously, you know, Michael Moore, his argument, he took a completely different argument there. This is a video from Trump recently.
Everybody just freezing in the president saying, what
That
was
was
that?
at the Live Golf tournament when he caught a lot of flack from.
have going. There we
Huh?
go.
It's not working?
No, I had other audio in the
Oh,
background.
okay, go ahead. Try it. Go back a little bit. Let's see what he has to say about this.
You're so closely associated with the city of New York. You, of all people, understand the passion surrounding 9/11. What do you say to those family members who protested earlier this week and will be doing so again on Friday?
Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have, as to the maniacs that did that horrible thing to our city, to our country, to the world. So nobody's really been there, but I can tell you that there are a lot of really great people that are out here today, and we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to celebrate, and money's going to charity. A lot of money's going to charity.
He just skates the issue.
Yeah, this was July 28th of this year.
Yeah, I mean, that was his opportunity to say, yeah, we should really have an investigation. And if you elect me president, I will get to the bottom of what really happened on 9/11, which he was saying in the campaign leading up to his election victory.
We could probably end it right there because it's right near the end. And you know what? Nothing was learned today, regretfully. And we played an hour and 40 minutes of it. And basically all the statements that he made were basically memes that we learned on the internet. That's it.
Catchphrases, sort of bumper sticker slogans,
And to my surprise, Sean,
cheerleader rhymes.
exactly. You know, to my surprise, Sean, Ed, was that he implicated Giuliani, Cheney, and Rumsfeld as not just being part of 9/11, but orchestration and planning. And
Right. Yeah, let's just disregard the hijackers and
Right.
the fact that they tried to bring down the World Trade Center 93.
right.
Let's forget about motive, means, and opportunity. You know, let's forget about those three principles of investigations. You know,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, and the message that, you know, we want to send here is not one of condemnation, but one of encouragement, and not encouragement heading toward what you saw here today, but from the message that we're trying to send, that there are actual conspiracies and anomalies involving 9/11, but they weren't brought up here today. And those involve pre-intelligence, and of course, what Sean alluded to earlier, which is probably the main instigator, foreign policy, and what came after 9/11 regarding previous foreign policy guidelines, like the Oded Yunan Plan or the Wolfowitz Doctrine, which later became the Bush Doctrine, and of course, Project for New American Century. All this came not 100% true, but a lot of it was materialized in the conflicts that we saw, not just in Iraq and Afghanistan, but Libya and Syria much later under the Obama administration. So the issue that we want to raise here is one of awareness and new information that you're not going to get from people like Richard Gage. You could reach out to any one of us and ask us questions. I mean, we're always on the internet, especially Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and we're more than willing to be accessible to you regarding any questions that you have. But if you keep want to go down this route of, you know, neocons and, you know, they're all to blame for 9/11, that the hijackers are alive, that the planes are actually drones or CGI, well, guess what? You're going to be doing videos just like Richard Gage here for the next 21 years. And you're not going to get anywhere, which means you're not going to go to court anytime soon. So, Ed, any parting final shots here?
no, I'm just you know, I'm glad that you know, he did get on this platform because it's an important platform, but it also gave us an opportunity to kind of correct some falsehoods or present some extra knowledge that he may not have known about, and hopefully he'll take it to heart if he sees this video and walk away better educated about the subject matter and actually go, you know what, maybe I need to look into this better. Maybe I need to look at the stuff I'm reading and actually vet it more, or just to make sure that he has the information correct that he's actually putting out there.
Sean, what did you take from this, and what kind of message you want to send?
Well, regarding information, I think the important message is that there is information, and it's a matter of, are you willing to accept the information and include it in your theories? Because we have a lot of theories out there, and a lot of them don't even mesh well. They're contradictory theories. And so obviously not all these many 9/11 theories can be correct all at once. So we have to be able to accept the evidence if there is evidence, and then really deal with the things that are not being touched on, which is what you both brought up, and how there's information that could be talked about that generally isn't, especially within the truth movement. But ironically, incidentally, it's not touched on by the debunker side or the mainstream media side as well. And so it's something where we can learn a lot by looking at what is not being discussed, and look at what is seeming consciously, subconsciously avoided in 9/11 discussion altogether. Because certainly the mainstream media never really is interested in reporting about the things that, say, Adam will post videos about all the time. Documents become released, and you can look at it and you can see, well, there was incredible connections with 9/11, especially regarding Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So there's information out there, but if you're bogged down by a bunch of questions that you're just not willing to accept the answers to, then you're just choosing to be bogged down by questions that you think are mysteries, which aren't. So I guess it's all about, where do you take the conversation, and is the conversation sort of limited?
Yeah, and I think that's a great final way to end the segue. And look, like I said, we have no problems personally with Richard Gage and people in that spectrum. We do have a problem with the message that they're trying to impart to the public, because the message that they're trying to impart to the public actually hurts the truth movement, not help it. And so I think we'll end it right there. Guys, if you managed this long, thank you very much for stopping by and listening to us and watching us. And thank you very much, and have a good night, guys.